meetings, the Poulsbo City Council will use this lens to inclusively view its discussions and actions. And I have the good fortune to do the land acknowledgement this afternoon. So this is a land acknowledgement regarding the city of Poulsbo. Poulsbo is located on the ancestral lands of the indigenous Suquamish people, for whom this place is known as Taklakla, or the land of the vine maples. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. And that was said by Chief Seattle in 1854. And with that, would you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is to review and approve the agenda. And as far as I know, the agenda is as stands, and I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Livedall, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Newell, aye.
Crow, aye.
Stern, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Thank you, council. Now is the time for comments from citizens. Now, there's a whole bunch of you. Would you please step to the podium? You have 33 minutes and state your name for the records, and we will have public comment ending by no later than 5:30. Okay?
Good evening, Irene Bowie. I'm a Poulsbo resident of Viking Park Manufactured Home Park, and a number of our residents are here. I'd just like to ask them if they would stand so you can see how many have come tonight. Hello? Thank you. I'd like to thank our city planner for the comprehensive report provided for this agenda item and for this council for putting it on today's agenda. As noted, MHPs in Poulsbo make up 10% of total housing stock. This is affordable housing the city already has with over 500 units. It makes sense to protect it. An MHP preservation overlay is the best option to ensure park residents continued affordable housing. Resident-owned communities are certainly an option we are all looking at, but the two are not mutually exclusive. And in fact, an overlay protection would help to keep a parcel's asking price within reason, rather than a price based on market rate housing or commercial use. The two largest MHPs in Poulsbo are 55+ communities. So even with the state's relocation assistance program, it would be a great hardship for many seniors to attempt a relocation, and very few options on available spaces in which to relocate. Most likely, residents would lose both their homes and their investment. Please join the growing number of Washington communities protecting this existing affordable housing with an overlay preservation zone. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sharon Clark and I live in Viking Park. And that was what I was going to say. Behind me stands 100 people easily, who wouldn't conceive of driving this, coming out here at night, but they're here with me. We're all paying attention to tonight. And I just wanted to say about this income situation that we're in. Most of us are in the situation of our income is relevant to 20, 30 years ago, not to today's, but we moved into this kind of situation, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And that's where we're at today. We are paying taxes on the land, even though we don't own it. So we're kind of in a halfway house between an owner and a renter. And the city government in general, our biggest job as government is to protect our elders, to protect our citizens. And that's what I'm asking about tonight, just to protect us. We're here, we've been there forever, just protect us. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I just want to personalize the story.
Can you state your name for the record?
Oh,
please?
sure. Janet Cragen. I'm 71 years old. When my husband and I first got married, we bought a mobile home down in LA. And when you took the metal panels off the bottom, you could look underneath and see the wheels. No tires because those would rot. And in front, there was a tow hitch because it was a mobile home. It was designed to be moved. Well, now we live in a manufactured home. The panels that are around the base of the home, they're fixed. They're built into the home, built into the foundation of the home. So when you crawl into the crawl space, you do it through a basement access. And underneath the home, there are no wheels. It's built onto a foundation. So it's not designed to be moved. There is no tow hitch. It's never designed to be moved. So if somebody said, I've decided to sell this land out from under you, as people are doing across the nation now, owners of these parks are deciding to sell and build condos, build apartment buildings, make luxury units. And then all of a sudden, the people who live there now have to, quote, move these immovable objects. And instead, what happens is they lose the home they've invested their retirement nest egg into buying. And so that's why we're asking you to put a protective overlay over the mobile home parks and call them what they are, mobile home parks, manufactured home parks. And make sure that we get to keep the homes that we've invested in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Mike Perry and I'm a Poulsbo resident, downtown business owner, HDPA member, and one of the founding members of the Poulsbo Veterans Day Parade. I respectfully ask you to consider the community's strong opposition to implementing paid parking downtown. Residents and business owners have voiced overwhelming concern that this change would negatively impact accessibility, local businesses, and the overall appeal of our downtown area. The feedback has been clear. Our community does not support paid parking. Downtown is a vital hub for our city, bringing together residents, visitors, and small business that depend on convenient and free access to thrive. Introducing paid parking could discourage people from coming downtown, affecting local businesses and the sense of community that makes our city special. Keeping parking free helps ensure that everyone can continue to enjoy and support our local economy without unnecessary barriers. We appreciate your commitment to listening to the people you serve and taking our concerns into account. I would like to personally thank Council members Doug Newell and Ed Stearns for meeting with myself, as well as a few other downtown business owners this week to further discuss this matter. Open lines of communication are key and essential for a cohesive relationship between our elected officials and the community. Thank you for valuing community input and for working to keep downtown welcoming and accessible for all. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Hi, friends. I'm Patrick Wright. I'm with the North Kitsap Herald and a few of the newspapers here. And many of our clients that support the newspaper are down here in Poulsbo. I'm speaking from the point of view in terms of parking. A lot of our businesses are struggling. I'm hearing these conversations. I'm trying to figure out how to do digital print advertising to make budgets really stretch so we can get more people to come and experience the vibrant culture we have here. On top of that, our community newspapers are driven by our local businesses and organizations. More than ever, we need transparency, we need collaboration, we need a win. The more opportunities that we have to not have people down, to get to know one another and to get to know our neighbors and work on some of these larger societal issues we need these places down here to have community. So I just really encourage you all, as we continue to have this conversation, that perhaps we might want to table this for the time being. We've got people that are really stretched to even pay their bills. A lot of the people that are working these places are my friends. I'm an actor at the Jewel Box. These are folks that are serving us every day, giving us that energy to go on and do all the fun things we do in this community. I really hope that through this meeting and all the things you're going to hear today, that you consider that there might be a creative way of doing this in the future. And I strongly think that we do not need to do this time. Thank you, guys.
Hi, my name is Cody Sims. I'm here today because of the parking. And I'm here today because of public trust and public response that I've talked with other business owners in the downtown area about their concerns over the paid parking. And I'm asking you not to make a hasty decision on implementing the paid parking and to engage in more dialogue with the community and compromise with us. There's other options that we can pursue before going straight into paid parking that might be a solution to a problem of parking both in spots, turnover, and all the other issues that we face down there, including just the overall lack of parking for everybody. We could try enforcement first and escalate from there if it needs to go there, but I believe it's worth trying something lesser than implementing paid parking. I think it's a very good parallel to the recent North Kitsap Vaughn and levies, where we were presented as a community with an option and we turned it down as voters. And we decided that it was not in the best interest and it wasn't a good steward, that we didn't believe that the city government was going to be a good steward with that. And so we voted it down. And lo and behold, you came back, you presented a better a better alternative to us, and it was passed. And I think that's a good way of thinking about this issue too, that if we can come to a compromise, we don't need to do something as hasty as going straight into the paid parking. We have options, we have other things that we can do. And to really think about what the real concern here is, if it's just a parking issue, it should, our first step should be looking to an alternative source that the community can get behind. And we're not so adamant, and we're filling your room up today to oppose. I think there's a lot of good dialogue that needs to happen. And I'm willing to engage in any of that as we go forward. Just please think about that today when you guys make your decision. Thank you.
My name is Whitney Sims. I'm really nervous. And I've lived in Poulsbo my entire life. So you can only imagine the pride I felt when I became a business owner in downtown Poulsbo. I am the owner of Wild Society Boutique Salon, located directly next to the King Olaf parking lot. My business provides a place of employment for 7 other self-employed hairstylists. The concerns that I have are parallel to the ones you've undoubtedly heard from the community that voted for you to represent them in important decisions like this. And as passionate as I am on these concerns, I don't feel confident that our arguments are even being considered during the process of this decision. I'm not sure how many of you are on the North Kitsap community Facebook groups, but if you are, you've seen the unanimous replies. Over 400 comments pleading to maintain the charm of our downtown Poulsbo and for the protection of the small businesses that bring it to life. I am at a loss as to how an entire community can be so opposed to something and our city council members seem to be deciding to do it anyways. I want you to understand that I respect your position in our community. I respect the time and energy you put into your work, and I understand these decisions aren't taken lightly. I do believe the proposed paid parking implementation is something you have researched thoroughly and want to believe in. I understand that to you, it would feel like time wasted and to change your vote tonight and would feel like you're going, and to change your vote tonight and go back to the drawing board, but I'm still asking you to do just that. There are a lot of decisions made for our city that go under the nose of the community, and while some community members may feel passionately and express concerns, they often express them too late because they were uninformed or they just don't think their voice would make a difference. So these things happen anyway and life goes on. But this isn't going to be one of those things. Your community feels betrayed, taken advantage of, and enraged. There's already anticipation of protests. You are losing the trust of the community at a rapid pace. Much of the community, like myself, just recently found out about this proposed paid parking, particularly the parking solution offered for the downtown employees. And while I'm sorry it took me this long to get involved, I am still hopeful that I can make an impact on the beautiful town that I grew up in. Sorry. I am asking you to reconsider the way that you intend to vote tonight. You have an opportunity right now to make a huge statement to the community that wants to trust you by listening to their voices and voting no on the paid parking implementation. It may feel like a step backwards for you in many ways, but it will be a huge step forward in the governing of our city and our ability to trust its future in your hands. The people that you see fighting here today are mostly business owners, but dozens of community members have spoken up, letting us know that they will no longer be stopping by for a donut or to pick up a quick birthday gift or to get their hair cut.
Would you sum up, please? You've had 3 minutes. Would you finalize your statement, please?
I'll just hand my phone to someone else and they can finish my statement, but yes, I will summarize. Or to get their hair cut if they are asked to pay for parking. They will simply go elsewhere to meet their needs. I understand how much time and energy has
Thank
gone
you.
into this proposal.
Thank you. Hey, thank you.
Hello, Mayor Erickson and Poulsbo City Council. My name is Jenny Cowan, and I'm here today on behalf of Verkstead Gallery and our 30 members. Verkstead is a nonprofit cooperative gallery and one of the oldest artist co-ops, second in the state of Washington. We have no paid employees, and the majority of our members are 65 and older and on fixed incomes. Verkstead Gallery has called downtown Poulsbo our home for 38 years. We fear that requiring paid parking for employees, tourists, local shoppers, and business owners would be detrimental to the health of our downtown area. Asking employees who make minimum wage and some who are only part-time workers to pay for monthly parking permits is not a solution, but a problem. This would be a financial burden to many in the downtown businesses and their employees. For Verkstead, if the cost of a monthly parking permit is $20 per month with 30 members, the cost would be $7,200 a year for us. This is an unsustainable cost for our nonprofit organization. Would your solution to this be for our members to share parking permits? If we shared by half, this is still a cost of $3,600 a year. This is an unsustainable cost for our artists co-op. Our local community has supported us for 38 years. Throughout the pandemic and in winter months when tourism is down, paid parking will only discourage our local community from coming downtown and supporting our local businesses. There are many signs throughout Poulsbo and parking time limits. In our 38 years downtown, I have never seen one parking person enforce any of these rules. Wouldn't our time and money be better spent investing in enforcing parking time limits rather than putting a financial burden on the local community and the businesses? We acknowledge that the city is working hard to balance the needs of the business with those who bring in revenue, and we kindly urge you to consider other alternatives to paid parking. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Gabriel Jacobs, and I'm a Poulsbo resident. Thank you for the opportunity and for all that you do. I'm also here to comment on the paid parking and reviewing past meetings. I've really appreciated the feedback sessions that I've seen documented and that you've conducted in recent years. And in these notes, I continue to see the same concern logged over and over again. Why are we not enforcing existing restrictions? Now, in the latest Walker report, it showed that there were people parking near the waterfront on Front Street, Anderson lots for between an hour and a half on average. Walker concluded that there was already, quote, high parking turnover. However, in the last meeting, we all saw some examples of vehicles that have remained parked in 3-hour parking for days on end, which is obviously against the rules and unacceptable. Yet, instead of penalizing those that fail to adhere to the rules, we're now forcing everyone to pay whether you're a tourist in town for the entire day or a resident picking up dinner takeout from a local restaurant, to get out of your car in downtown Poulsbo, it will now cost you money. And to be honest, my biggest concern, as we've heard, is for local business owners who will not only be required to pay in order to park near the businesses that they own and operate, but will also lose a portion of their customers who are already struggling with inflation as prices have gone up by over 20% in the last 5 years. And I think it's really important to clarify that this is not in place of ticketing. We will still be ticketing people, because for any rule to be effective, whether it's free 3-hour parking or an hourly fee, that rule needs to be enforced. And so from my perspective, my fear is that we're going to be charging and potentially ticketing visitors who would have come and gone in an hour anyway, but who might not visit Poulsbo anymore. Thank you.
How's it going? My name is Jack Douglas, 9-time parking ticket escapee and Poulsbo resident. We've got a lot of important things on the docket. I know everyone's kind of addressed it to death, but I feel very strongly. I vehemently oppose any variety of paying for parking. I think it's morally detestable. When you did the opening, I haven't been to one of these actually. This is the one I've cared the most about, so I went to it. But when you did the opening, you did this whole land acknowledgement thing. You said Chief Seattle said every piece of soil is sacred. Is it really sacred to you if you're charging $2 per hour on it? I just can't really get behind that kind of thing. I mean, there's people that live here. I think it's wrong to charge them really anything for just existing. I think it's a bureaucratic failure for the first initial solution to just be charging them. That's not cool to me, especially the logistics of it. Like, do you guys know when you're going to send them to collections? How many tickets are you going to do that with? Who's doing your collections? Is it Diamond? God forbid it's Diamond. If it is Diamond, I'll get you out of the ticket. I've got 9 of them. I got my friends that have more. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure this doesn't happen. Also, in 2023, December 8th, you put out a whole little survey thing where all the businesses talked about how they felt about the parking. Unsurprisingly, no one liked it. The people didn't like it, and most of the businesses didn't like it. There was one business owner who did like it. I'm not going to shout out any names. You can look up the article later. She did own 3 businesses, and that was when you guys were proposing the businesses were going to get a cut of the parking profit. I'm just saying that doesn't sound super cool to me. What else do I got? Yeah, so that whole idea of paying the businesses out of it to take the voice away from people, really good idea. But I think that people, they have their feelings, and I think you can't go against them like that. You can't have a community if you're making their lives, if you're making their presence an hourly fee, you're not going to have a community. I think the people know what they want. And are you going to go with that, or are you going to go against it? Thanks.
My name is Vicki Fleming, and I'm an almost 40-year resident of Poulsbo. I live and love downtown Poulsbo. I go down there and I shop there 3 or 4 times a week. I am also going to talk about the parking because I don't think this is a good idea at all. Granted, our parking is tight in the summer. I had no problem parking this week. And I think enforcement of the parking regulations that we have on hand is the answer. And I am firmly against, and everyone I've talked to downtown is against this. As far as I can tell, there has been no public comment. I read about this in the Bremerton Sun. And we want a vibrant, and we have a vibrant downtown. Having too little parking isn't a bad sign. It means people are coming, people are shopping. Will they come and shop if they're paying $2 an hour and being enforced 24/7? And it's one of those stupid barcode things that some of us seniors have trouble figuring out. I think a better option is to look at options for the parking, build something if we need to, maybe have some paid parking out further with a shuttle. I don't know what it is, but it isn't putting big expensive parking fees downtown. Thank you.
Excuse, before you start real quick, Mayor, could we, I'd like to let the last 5 people finish. I know it'll go past 5:30, but. Right, but we did remove time limits on public comment from our rules, so I'd like to let.
All right, I'll be pretty efficient. Good evening. Thank you for your service to our community. I'm Andrea Chimey, or sorry, recently changed name. This is Dr. Andrea Legg. I'm one of the owners of Pacifica Medicine. We've been here in Poulsbo for almost 10 years, but recently moved to the downtown core about a year ago. So we were really excited to do that. We were overjoyed to be part of this vibrant part of the community of Poulsbo. I'm also a resident of Poulsbo. And in surveying my fellow employees at Pacifica Medicine, all 10 of us, plus the patients we've talked to about this issue, are all very concerned and hope that you reconsider your current plans for paid parking in Poulsbo. I know everyone else has eloquently stated their concerns, so we have similar concerns, but especially for our business, we have hundreds of patients who come see us every year, many of whom are on fixed incomes, many of whom are have movement disabilities, and it's not always possible to easily find handicap parking, and not all of them have handicap permits. So it's important for them to be able to easily find parking, and that's never an issue in the mornings for us, which is when we're open. So if they had to pay, it would just be one more impediment for them to get healthcare. I know it's a little unique because a lot of these businesses are retail, but it's all one big community, and we're all concerned about it. So all the different types of businesses, I think, are represented here tonight, and I strongly encourage you to reconsider. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Teresa Gutierrez Jacobs. I'm going to try and make mine a little bit shorter so that I can ensure that the people behind me can actually speak as well. I am a Poulsbo resident, and my family comes to downtown a few times each week. I have gone through all of the documents on the website, as well as the notes from the Parking Advisory Committee, and I have not found any kind of documentation saying that the city has done its due diligence in adequately enforcing the existing parking policies that are currently in place. I was at last week's meeting and I heard some stories about how there has been some kind of enforcement, but there was no documentation or understanding of how strict that was, how it panned out, how long it lasted, any of that. And in fact, according to the most recent parking study and implementation plan, that report outright said, and I quote, "The parking system is mostly unmanaged and there's no active enforcement of parking restrictions and policies in place. This status quo has been in place for many years despite ongoing studies confirming the conditions and suggested recommendations put forth to address or mitigate the situation." Now, I appreciate just how complex this issue has been and the fact that some of you have been talking about this for decades. That's not the rest of us. I think you really need to take the first step by enforcing parking and enforcing the policies we already have in place before going to an expensive technical solution. Make sure, do your due diligence. Let us in on it too. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julie Wilson. Good afternoon, Council and Mayor Erickson. My background is parking management, valet management, and tourism, and worked for a city council as well. And I'm going to share a story because there's already been key points, and I'm not going to belabor that. I think there's opportunities here to evaluate the current system and enforcing the 3-hour parking, 2-hour or 1-hour parking, because it's sprinkled all over the city. I think there's an opportunity there. This happened in West Seattle, and they enforced a parking behind the merchants of California Avenue. Once it was free parking, it was great. They had tourism coming in, spending local merchants, restaurants were busy. The minute they put paid parking, what happened is it pushed everyone out to the other neighborhoods. And so, as you can see, I'm a downtown local. I love Poulsbo. I live in Skittleville. I mean, I spend my dollars here.
but I worked with Mayor Erickson about, what was it, 5 years ago, and looked at valet parking by Slippery Pig and taking people up to First Lutheran Church. There's 54 spots up there that aren't being used Monday through Friday. The only day it's busy at the church is Sundays. There's opportunities there. POP, parking across from WRB, doesn't get a lot of activity because it's difficult for some people to run with the apps called Park Pay. And I think that that's going to be challenging. Identifying what we have today and enforcing what we have today, there's some opportunity there. And so I wanted to share that because it handicapped West Seattle. And I know that there's opportunity to look. I know what the Walker study is. Do the numbers. It's about $1 million comes back to the city after monthly in expenditures. Mayor Erickson, you and I did the math. We ran into red tape with the city and we couldn't get any further. There's opportunities in shoulder months in the tourism to push people up to the church. Maybe some signage to this building here because we have parking downstairs that no one knows about. There's one sign and you'd have to be a local to figure it out. Just maybe put some signage out there for people to park even on the weekends. There's no one parking here. There's 80 spots down there. And part of the challenge too, you guys, is that we're an older community. There's seniors. I'm happy to be a senior. I love Poulsbo. I'm going to say it one more time. I love Poulsbo. But there's challenges with disabled parking spots that are level for people. There's only, I
Your-
counted
your-
them today,
your
8
time-
people.
You have to sum up.
Okay,
please.
there's 8 stalls for this disabled. But I think that there's opportunities to revisit and regurgitate what's going on because there's business owners here that's going to be impacted. So thank you for your time, Council, Mayor Erickson, appreciate it.
I've had a request from Mr. Eckert to extend the public comment period. Is the council ready? Okay with that? Yes. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, city officials. My name is Pam Keeley. I'm from Lions Park. And I also want to speak to the parking issue. $2 an hour might not sound like much money, but you know, I haven't heard anybody yet talk about the profound political upheaval that we are all in the midst of right now, and the trickle-down effects from that. Today I was out with my wife and we talked to about 18 of the shop owners down on Front Street, and already their cost of their goods has almost doubled. There are tariffs now on imported goods. Goods are being held in customs with almost a ransom to be paid to get out of customs. And when that's just a smidgen of the shopkeeper's side. But then you think about all of the hundreds of thousands of jobs that have been lost in just the last 2 weeks. People who are out of work. We have a neighbor 2 doors away who had to lay off 20 employees. We ran into a man whose son was just laid off from Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. We've heard from somebody who was working with the State Department who was laid off. We've heard from another civil servant who was given 3 hours to leave their job, which was overseas. By the time they got to the airport, their government passes and ticketing had all been canceled. There's one other example of note. A Poulsbo resident whose son works for the Nuclear Security Agency, whose son was laid off, and there's just a skeleton crew at Hansford right now. 300 employees laid off at our nuclear facilities in the state. So when people come to shop in Poulsbo, are they going to be able to come to shop? You know, a lot of that is disposable income. but we're talking about people that don't have income now. So this is not the right time for this plan. Thank you.
Hello, my name's John Gustafs. I first of all, thank you for this opportunity. I'm not going to speak for very much, but what I want to say is on anything that has to do with the resolution and the downtown parking implementation, please don't do it for a lot of reasons. There, you can just feel it when you come in Poulsbo. I just parked right out here and it was really easy to do. Also, I have my grandchildren who are they're 10, 6, and 5, and they like to play in the parks and they like to go to the stores, and I like to purchase things with them. But I'm thinking of the inclusivity of this area and the equity of it all, making sure that the people could come here. My dad was 92 years old. And during the time when my dad brought me here as a little boy, and I live here, it's my home, and I'm older now, and I know that my neighborhood, who I'm a PCO, that they are not happy with this. They don't want that. They want to be able to come down here and enjoy it and spend money when they can, and they want to be able to get out their car and be able to come around. So I just want to keep it simple, but please don't do it. Just don't do it. That's what my message is. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Colbains. I think I am the woman that was referred to that owns the 3 businesses. Anyway, if you dig a little bit deeper into what I've said over to the time that we've been talking about parking, is that what's happening right now isn't working, that I'm willing to try anything. So since that stuff has come along, I've been at a number of meetings. The first one I want to make reference to was the HDPA meeting here that was attended by the mayor and Councilwoman Livedall. And the downtown merchants were overwhelmingly, I think, showed in force that they were not in favor of this. As a former president of the HDPA, I think that it's important to listen to your merchants and to listen to people. And regardless of where I have some creative thoughts, and I was part of a meeting last night with the other merchants, and the idea of, okay, how about an hour free parking, and then they could have QR codes and I can give them $2 off their meal if they show the QR. There's all these things, but what is most important right now is that the community is not ready for it. It's overwhelmingly, they're not ready for it until we talk more about what that stuff is. And I think it's important for you guys to listen to that. I do know I was part of this parking committee. I've been part of a past parking committee. This is a red button issue that actually, if nothing else, shows that people get engaged. That's one thing I think all of you are probably happy to see, is that people are engaged. So I'll just wrap it up there and say, I think you have to listen to your downtown merchants who aren't ready for this. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Bishop. I have never been engaged in civics, never felt called to talk to anybody about any of my opinions. A lot of the work that I do currently has to do with mental health and helping people feel better and just relax. And I have never really thought, you know what, it is my time to come out and talk. And I'm gonna mirror everybody and say, parking, no thank you, I don't want to pay for it. Not only does it stop certain people from coming to a place that feels healing, that feels like a community, that gives peace and opportunities to everybody, but if you start charging
then that'll take away those opportunities, that open, wonderful feeling to people that maybe can't afford it, but the people that can still afford it will still be able to come. That's going to make a much smaller community. And I feel like that's something that kind of tears down everybody when certain groups are excluded. It's going to be a big bummer. I'm not going to be as eloquent, but I read this today. I felt motivated to come out and join my voice with everybody else that we've heard today. And I want to talk about solutions. I want to be a part of the solutions. I love the valet idea. I like the idea of maybe rezoning some things so that future development can solve the problem, add more parking, not, just kind of make it so no one can park there now. So let's come up with a different solution. I want to be a part of it. I've never wanted to be a part of anything really long and logistical before. And I think everybody's really motivated and everybody cares. Let's make a different choice and not vote yes for paid parking.
Okay, folks, thank you very much for all your comments. The next thing we're moving on to is mayor's reports and council comments. Mr. McVeigh, how are you this evening?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor. Thanks to everybody for coming out. I will, I agree with Mr. Cobains that it's good to see so many people passionate about Poulsbo. I wished I'd have seen some of you sooner in the process. We've been at this for 2 years. All the meetings have been open to the public. But I guess human nature is we sometimes don't focus on things until there's an action that's going to take place. But thanks for loving Poulsbo. Thanks for being passionate. Thanks for being here. I think I have no other comments besides that. I look forward to our conversation tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McVeigh. Ms. Litveld.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone for being here as well. I know it's not always easy to get up here and speak into a microphone, and we really do appreciate it. And we really do want to hear from you. I'm going to reserve the remainder of my comments for later. Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight, for the email, comments on social media. I have looked at them. I've read them all. There's folks that have been engaged in this process the whole 2 years, repeatedly have been here, have done their research. Denver, Mike, you guys have been there from the beginning. I appreciate everything you've done. You've been thoughtful, you've been constructive. Other folks, I'm not sure how calling us corrupt and incompetent gets us to go to your side of the argument, but you have your right to make those statements too. That's the fun of public office. People get to say things and that's the way it goes. Couple of things that have come up repeatedly in saying, these are better solutions. One I keep seeing is someone mentioned a valet, or I've seen a lot about why isn't there public, have public transit, have shuttles. This is the bus route that runs through Poulsbo right now, every day, that almost no one uses. If you'll notice, it's kind of hard to read, but on one end of there's 123 parking spaces. On the other end of it, I think it's 235. Nobody uses this, but a lot of the comments were, you need to have a shuttle or you need to have public transit because there's no incentive to not park downtown. Another one is focused largely on a garage. Everyone says build a garage, just build a garage. We all know everybody wants to park in Anderson Parkway. That's where people want to park. That's the close lot. We can't build a garage in Anderson Parkway. We just can't. It's fill. You can't build a multi-story concrete structure on fill land. Not if we want it to be there in 5 years. Those of you who are familiar with the Monty Python movies, it's the castle that'll fall down, fall into the swamp and sink. We can't build it there. So also, ask everybody that lives up here on the hill if they want a multi-story concrete parking garage built in their water view. That'll be the next time the council chamber will be full. When they're here telling us, do not build a parking garage in their water view. You're ruining the bay. So we can't build it there. So we got to build it further away, assuming that this is what happens. So if there's no paid parking downtown and we have a parking garage built further away, where's the incentive to use it? Because there's parking further away right now that nobody wants to use They all want to park in Anderson Parkway. I know, I live here too. I go down there too. I go down there a lot less than I used to because I don't want to fight for parking. I go down there pretty much to take my son to get a burger that he can eat because it's safe, because he has food allergies. So I go to Juicy J's. That's about it. And I've lived here for 16 years. I don't go down there anymore. I want a solution so we could all enjoy downtown. Parking garage could be a solution if we could pay for it and if we could encourage folks to use it. So a parking garage is about $10 million plus or minus. So if we start there, and it doesn't work, we've obligated the citizens of Poulsbo to a $10 million bill because we got to borrow that money. That money doesn't exist at the bank right now. If it doesn't work, the bill's still there, $10 million or more. If we start with paid parking, we put in the equipment that is significantly less, and it doesn't work, we stop it. We cancel the contract and we stop doing it. And we go back to what we're at right now, which, as someone so eloquently pointed out, just ain't working. But we could stop that. We can't tear down a parking garage and negate a $20 million bill. So folks, this isn't where we started. We didn't start at paid parking. This is 20 years of study have got us to this point. So please don't think this has been taken lightly. Now, most of us have only been on council for a short period of time, relatively. 4 of us have been here less than a year and a half. But this has been ongoing for longer than a lot of us have lived here. We have been, this is not new. This is not where we started. This is not a quick decision. This is not a light decision. This has been going on for decades. And as he said, we got to try something. So I get it. I don't want to pay either. I don't want to raise taxes either. But those are the ways. I don't want to have to hire extra cops just to hand out parking tickets downtown, because Chief needs those cops out doing a lot more significant things, stopping folks selling fentanyl in our community, solving murders. We got stuff going on in this community that they need our cops doing that is not handing out parking tickets. We need intelligent solutions to this problem, and we're going to try. And if it doesn't work, we'll talk about it again. But please don't think we're taking this lightly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eckert. Mr. Newell, how are you this evening?
Well, we live in a great place, and I think you've all heard this, and I think we all believe this. As I sit here and look at the engagement of our community, over your heads, believe it or not, the sun is setting over the Olympics, and I could see the peaks behind that. We're here because of the setting, but I would say more importantly, because of the people that make up our community. We like being here. It works for us. And thank you for being here tonight to comment on that and being active participants, even those that said that's my first time ever speaking. I think we all speak. We talk as family units, we talk in our businesses, we talk together. And we don't always get it right, but we're always thinking, those of us that live here in the city of Poulsbo, about how to move forward. There are disagreements, and I would suggest to you there's disagreements potentially here. I think there is steps that we can take to walk into this. The Walker recommendation and the Parking Council Committee identified some low-hanging fruit, some easy wins, some short-term things that we can consider to go, all right, how do we move forward? Thank you for being here. This is what makes our city great, is those of you in front of us being active participants.
Thank you, Mr. Newell. Ms. Crowe, how are you this evening?
Hi, I'm doing fine. Thank you all for your comments, and not only the manufactured non-mobile housing comment. You know, that is something that does speak deeply to my heart because, you know, I've been in vulnerable housing situations, and to me, that's a vulnerable housing situation. So maybe there's something that we can look at that puts a sustainable solution in place. And in reference to parking, I will say that it's a little unsettling because I believe in doing something with someone and for someone and not to someone. So I say that in reference to the fact that the business owners, merchants, oftentimes when I speak to some, my local residents, and community members, as well as tourists, you're the reason that many of them do come. Yes, there are other events and occasions as to why they do come to Poulsbo in the downtown area. That they, my daughter says that the downtown street of Poulsbo reminds her of Disneyland. So you guys kind of bring a little bit of Disneyland. So on that note, I there was compromise. There was talk of solutions or not doing it, and I I believe that we can't be having the same conversation in the next year or 2 years from now. Something has to be done. I say that because I have circled down there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes trying to find a parking space. I don't know if anyone else has experienced that, but I have circled. And I made the mistake. I've learned two things. One, make sure I go to the bathroom. Two, don't have anything else scheduled. And not only circled, I've even come to the parking garage. And then, yes, there's been some times I've been successful and somebody was pulling out and I found a space. Or I parked further out because, hey, exercise, I need to walk. So what is the compromise? What is the solution? For just to put it out there, I don't agree with a 2025 implementation. It would be great, and I do believe and have heard and had conversations with the mayor and the planning department and reference to all of the background work and history that's tied to parking. I believe that a lot has been tried, implemented. Parking enforcement, it sounded like it got really nasty for those who were trying to do it. I heard the words that caught me was, let's not be hasty. And then also, I do have to acknowledge the fact that we have to look at inflation, what is going to occur that paid parking is going to impact the customer. What is the business owner going to have to pass to the customer because of inflation? I've heard this is not the right time. There's has to be identified right time. It may be painful that I prefer, okay, y'all can get me later. Let's try parking enforcement again and do it assertively. And because money's going to come out someplace. Money's going to either come out with writing citations for paid parking and the personnel and processing, or can we try parking enforcement again, assertively, aggressively? And somebody used the word transparency. I heard that several times. And let's be transparent about that report. Can we try that in 2025? What other pieces can we implement and put into place? If parking enforcement, paid parking does occur, can we enhance the number of free parking spaces? Can we enhance and elevate the number of handicap parking spaces? And then also for the business owners and employees, what can we identify that is accessible to the business owners and employees that's not a pain point? I don't want this to be painful. And right now it's feeling painful. So those are my comments for now.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. Mr. Stern.
Thank you, Mayor. Number one, I want to thank everyone for caring so loudly. The mobile and manufactured home communities and the people in the downtown and the citizens on the parking issue. Thank you for caring loudly. I have, for the 2.5 years that I had the privilege of serving on the parking committee, said consistently, as my colleagues have gotten used to me saying repeatedly, the cure should not be worse than the illness. It's an old adage, and that's my test here. Also, I look at the nature of what we're wrestling with. We have a problem. But what a great problem we have in Poulsbo, that so many people want to be in the historic downtown. to walk the waterfront park, tour, shop, eat, and visit on our front street. We have a parking problem, and it is a problem, but it's a problem, for example, Port Orchard or Bremerton would love to have. And a majority of other cities and towns in the United States would love to have, who are suffering in their downtowns for a host of reasons. We have a problem, and we need to avoid making it a bad problem, a bad problem. To me, some of the scenarios laid out, in my single opinion, do not pass the test I have kept in mind for those 2.5 years recently, that the cure not be worse than the illness. One scenario calls for earmarking revenue for parking, from parking for acquiring land and ultimately building a parking garage that my colleague, Councilman Eckert, referred to at a cost of tens of millions of dollars. There's a real desire up here to fix the problem, and there's a vision of a long-term solution. I acknowledge that, Mayor. And that might be the ultimate answer. But for me, my focus is the short term for now. And then we can address the others and cross those bridges as time goes by. In the short term, any approach, if we do anything, in my opinion, is simply to move the employees, owners, and boaters, out of the downtown, who are there for 3, 5, 6 hours at a time, are there overnight. That should be the short-term objective. And that's the test I will apply here in a few minutes when we get to business agenda item number 5. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. Mr. Tabor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. Especially community, business owners, concerned citizens. This is what it's all about. Thank you for participating. We received probably over 50, 60 emails, most of which had really great, well-constructed arguments and concerns about parking. I'll start with parking. And I myself started out with many of the same arguments and concerns, and I've been persuaded on the majority of them over to looking for a solution. And the main thing I want to underline is right now we're at 0, right? That has been brought up. There's no enforcement. And then let's say 100 is making every parking spot in Poulsbo paid for. The current solution that's on the board is just one of several that the council's working on and chipping at. We're not just going to implement 100% paid parking. It's probably gonna be something closer to 25% of the existing spots. And then we're looking at and making employee potentially free parking, 2 or 3 days with no parking, enforced. There's tons of options, dozens and dozens of options that we're going to go through and look at, and I'm particularly interested in those. So if anyone has to leave, that's probably what my main focus will be later tonight when we go over the items. So to summarize, we're going from 0 to something. We can't stay at 0. And we're not just hastily deciding, we're digging into things, and we've been talking about this a long time. It's not something that we're flippantly just rolling a dice on and hoping it works out. And also I'll note that whatever we do come to, we can change it. If it's Armageddon out there, we can roll it back. It's not written in stone. It's a two-way door. And then related to the affordable housing, I could not agree more. It's much easier to protect affordable housing than it is to create new affordable housing. I feel very strongly about that, and I think the city's doing a great job meeting with our mobile and manufactured homes communities and working with them. So thank you so much for your input. And the state is going through a lot of this as well. There's other cities that are going through a lot of this, so we can look at them and see how that's going. And we do, and we research and we try to find the best solution to protect our affordable housing and creating new affordable housing. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Tabor. Just a few words, since I have, and Mr. Stern probably have the greatest history here. I think I have you beat because the farm was bought by the Ericksons in 1962. Okay. I was lucky enough to marry a wonderful Erickson. And so anyway, we've been around here a long time. And when Our farm was annexed in 2006, which I didn't want. I was mad as hell. And I ended up coming into the city of Poulsbo, ran for council and then ran for mayor, boom, boom. And in 2010, when I became mayor, this building was simply a hole in the ground. Okay, it was a hole in the ground. And this downtown was dead. It was right in the middle of the recession. There was 13 empty storefronts. I counted them. There was nobody home downtown, dead. It was unbelievable. I drove in on a February morning, it was President's Day, just about this time, 2010, cold as heck. And I went around the corner and I went through the parking lot, and guess what? The parking lot was filled with cars that were frozen. And this is in 2010. I said, what the heck? What is going on? And there were boaters, people taking their boat out because of the holiday weekend, and they were parking their cars and just leaving them all weekend long. And I said, well, we've got to do something about this. And we started to do enforcement. Yes, we did enforcement until I was threatened and had to pay personally $100 in people's parking tickets. So because they were so mad, we didn't really have anybody to do the enforcement because we just laid off 13% of the staff because we were broke. And I remember we towed 3 cars out of that parking lot because they'd been there that long. Yeah, I have a history with the parking in the parking lots. I'm going to be very interested to see what this council, because they are the policymakers, decides to do with the parking, but that'll be later on in the evening. But I want to talk about something really cool and happy, okay? Not parking, something happy. We had basically a wall hitting, ribbon cutting, smashing for something up at Olympic College this week, where we kicked off something called the Allied Health Center. And it was basically what Olympic College is going to do is remodel a building, spend a lot of money, compliments of St. Michael's Medical Center, Kitsap County, and one other source. Kitsap County, St. Michael's, and OC, the 3 of us are spending a ton of money up there to create something called the Allied Health Center, which is they're going to be training medical professionals up there. In the next 5 years, we hope there'll be 13 different professions trained up there, and building out the Olympic College campus. It's a big deal for the city of Poulsbo. It's a big deal for providing medical care to our population. One other thing that I want to share with you is I had a phone call with the Puget Sound Regional Council today, and talking about our federal situation and federal dollars for transportation, both roads and transit. And they will be publishing a list of all of those grants, federal grants that they think could potentially be in jeopardy. And I will be distributing that out as soon as I get it. But this is for the whole Puget Sound region. This is King, Pierce, Snohomish County. It's about $1 billion worth of grants that are on this list. So stay tuned. The Rocky Road might be getting a little rockier. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, with that, the next thing on the agenda is board and commission reports. Anybody have any board and commission reports? Okay, so let's keep moving. We got a busy night. Okay, the next thing is the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the city council for reading and study, and it's considered to be routine. And it is items 7A through F, and I would entertain a motion.
Madam Mayor, move to approve consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Noel, aye.
Pro, aye.
Stern, aye.
Tabor, aye.
Thank you, council. And now on to the first business agenda, which is the Poulsbo North Kitsap Rotary Club Waterfront Park Beer Biking Tour.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council and citizens. I'm pleased to introduce the president of the Poulsbo Rotary Club, Chad Salby, who will be presenting a consideration for Council tonight regarding Viking Tour being held at Rotary Memorial Park this year. Chad?
Good evening, everyone.
This is going to be pretty lighthearted from the other topics. So the Poulsbo Rotary was here about a year ago for the same topic, and this is something that's required every year. So for those that are new, Poulsbo Rotary's been around 49 years. It's been one of the fundraisers, one of three major fundraisers that it has each year, is a biking tour and Brewfest. And that event has gone on the last 9 years. It's raised about $170,000 for local things, international, national, a little bit of all three. Historically, we've had around 700 participants. That's up to 400 riders, 250 participants in the beer garden, and about 50 volunteers. Last year was the first year that we moved it away from Biking Fest, and having it downtown was the goal. And one of the requirements of downtown when there's alcohol involved is that the council needs to approve it. And that's really why we're here tonight. The council did that last year, and it was a successful event. The weather was a little sketchy, but it was successful. We're planning on this year for May 24th. That's a Saturday. And one of the changes we talked about last year by doing it, and there was talks about parking, talks about food. Historically, in the 9 years, this event has had its own food, if you will, food trucks brought in and kind of self-contained. Last year, we partnered with the Downtown Association, where all the participants that get a meal with their registration were able to get the meals at the local merchants. And quite frankly, that was really, really well received by the participants as well as the merchants. That was a win-win. We received great feedback on the venue, as you can imagine, downtown Poulsbo on the waterfront. It's a beautiful place. And we'd like to do that again this year, and we're looking for your permission. And I will add one thing, Mayor. The sample motion was when this was, so what we're looking for a motion from council on is to authorize this or to not authorize it, not move it to consent.
Okay, so you need an approval to let the biking tour go forward or not? I think this is pretty straightforward. Okay.
Madam
Mr.
Mayor, in
Sterk.
order to put this on the table, I will move that proposition forward. I'll make that a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay,
What is the motion? Are we moving
we-
to put it on the consent agenda?
No,
That's
we
what.
are moving to pass it right now. This is a bad motion that's in your packet.
Oh, okay, so it's
we're
not,
moving
it's
to
different,
approve the
it's
agenda.
different than what we have in the past.
Yes.
All
that's
right.
Correct.
We are moving to
approve.
approve the liquor license for the Poulsbo Rotary Brew Fest.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay,
Right.
want to make sure we're clear.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr.
Second.
You have a
Somebody
motion and a
that?
second on the
Okay,
table.
thank you.
Mr. Newell and then Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, could you just describe briefly where do participants, park? And the duration of that parking?
Yeah.
And what's the impact to downtown on that?
Yes, where they
perspective?
park.
This was supposed to be a fun night.
Because the elephant walked in the room and I'm just like going, I want to see how big the elephant is.
It's supposed to be a fun item. You just ruined it.
Yeah, no, it's all right. It went well last year. So last year, the way it worked is we did take part of the downtown waterfront parking for a little bit in the morning. Participants would come down and drop things off and then move up to the church. So we got a lot of our vehicles, except for the people that were working downtown in the Brewfest, out of that area. The bike race begins at 9 a.m. So there's kind of an early morning start. People are down there 6:30, 9 o'clock, the bikes take off. And then it's kind of quiet down there till they all start coming back afternoon, and then things are in the downtown Brewfest.
Thank you for that explanation.
Mr. Eckert.
Yeah, one observation, that's Memorial Day weekend. So just from a logistical standpoint of busy downtown, that's something to keep in mind. And then also, I'm gonna make it less fun. Jeff, this is not just this event, but all of these types of events, if we make changes downtown to parking, I think you need to be directly engaged in the process, because if we're gonna charge people to park down there, then the value of those parking spaces goes up significantly. And if we have big events downtown that are taking away parking spaces to have booths, trucks, lay down areas, et cetera, I think that cost needs to be looked at, and that events that needs to be factored into the events, because we're gonna be taking away. So, we need to look at the event holders need to be potentially held as part of that process, pay for those spaces they're taking up. So it's a detail that's way down in the weeds, but as we go forward, that's something I think we need to consider too.
Thank you, Councilman Eckert, and we are aware and working on that after direction is provided.
Mr. McVeigh.
Mayor, I happened to be down at the Brewfest last year. In fact, for the second year in a row, I served as one of the beer judges. I'm not aware of any problems with the event. I may be available this year. I'd have to check my calendar. But I think this is something certainly that I would support, and I'm guessing the majority of my council colleagues would support.
I have a problem that judging was not offered to all of us and only you. That's my problem.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to approve the biking tour with alcohol consumption down in the park. That is the motion in front of you, and there has been a second. Is there any conversation more about this? Seeing none. Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Lived I.
Eckerd, aye.
Newell, I.
Pro I.
Stir.
Tabor, I. And Scala.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you. And I sent you an email. Did you get it? I hope. Chad?
I'm sure I did.
Okay, thank you. Check it, because if you didn't, I'll send it again, okay? I'm presenting at Rotary on Friday morning, and I sent him a PowerPoint if you're wondering. So, okay, thank you, Chad. Okay, now we're moving on to an MOU for the Rotary Club, Rotary Memorial Park Pavilion Final. And this is 2/12/25.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council and citizens. We just had introductions, but I do want to introduce another Rotarian, and this is John Berkemer. And he is going to be talking a little bit about the Rotary MOU that's in front of you. I'm going to kick this off first, if that's all right, John. So Council, what you have in front of you is an MOU. You may recall the last MOU that we entered with Rotary was for the community AEDs that went into our parks, the 4 that went around. This is built on the same template. What it does is entering an MOU. We're proposing to enter an MOU with them. They have secured, I think, $5,000 in a district Rotary grant to put towards building a pavilion over at Rotary Memorial Park. So Rotary Memorial Park is very close to being finalized. Tentatively, public record, I'm crossing my fingers, we're looking at a April 19th community ribbon cutting celebration where we're going to open this, and it would be lovely to have the pavilion ready by then. And what this does is Rotary is willing to make the work happen, get the funding in place, and get it completed. The city has about $4,000 in the project. This is an original project cost. And that would just be allocated towards making sure that the pavilion can happen, and they would take care of the rest. With that said, I'm going to hand it over to John. And John, if you can explain your role in this.
Hello, thank you for having me here. So I'm a Rotarian member here in the Poulsbo Club, but also work as a general contractor here in Kitsap County, and have been asked by the Poulsbo Rotary to kind of head up this project just from a project management standpoint. At this point, we have an architectural and a structural design that is in for permit with the city of Poulsbo that we're hoping will go well. And at that point, we're just ready to kick off. That's really about it from my end. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so questions for Jeff and guest about this MOU? Go ahead, Mr. Eckert.
Be happy to make a motion. Move to authorize the mayor to sign the Poulsbo Rotary Club MOU on the city's behalf.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Let's get that park finished. Okay. Any other further discussion? Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Lived I.
Eckerd, aye.
Newell, I.
Pro I.
Stir, aye.
Tabor, I.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
You're welcome. Now we're on to, don't go anywhere, Jeff. You have LTAC chair selection. This is Jeff.
Good evening again. So we have, just to recollect, put everybody back on the same page. Councilmember Stern has withdrawn his from the chairperson role for the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, where he has served as the chair for at least 4 years and been involved for about 20 years. This is a 5-person voting block. There are 4 other members, 2 made up of local businesses who collect the lodging tax, and 2 who are also recipients of the lodging tax. And there's a 5th position, and that is normally a council member who's in that chairperson role. And tonight, what we're looking for is direction and discussion amongst council of who will be that new chairperson role. And we had Councilmember McVeigh announced that he is interested in this last week, and it's open for discussion. Just a very quick reminder: this is a voting roll of 5 that helps administer the lodging tax that is collected annually that goes back into supporting tourism and bringing more folks to our lovely city.
Okay, Mr. McVeigh has, sounds like volunteered for this position.
I have volunteered. I'm anxious to succeed Mr. Stern in the role. I have talked with Mr. Stern about the responsibilities. I've got a few questions answered. I also talked with Director Osment, and I am ready to go.
Mr. Stern, go ahead.
As Councilman McVeigh said, him and I had a chance to meet and review. I know he's done the same with Jeff and Lynn to get up to speed, but seeing no others having raised their hands, but more so regarding Mr. McVeigh, he comes with a marketing background and private sector background. And that is the essence of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, is that point of contact between the city and the business community to further tourists in the sense of having heads and beds where they spend the night and generate economic value. So I believe Mr. McVeigh brings the necessary experience in his previous career that would enhance that.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. For the benefit of our listeners tonight, I should probably just explain that the LTAC is the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Okay, we use a lot of acronyms around here, but Lodging Tax Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move to appoint Councilman Gary McVeigh as our representative from the City Council on the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Mr. McVeigh, you can vote for yourself. Yes, you can.
McVeigh, aye.
Your die.
Eckert, aye.
Newell, aye.
Pro, I.
Stern, aye.
Tabor, aye. And Gary, go forth and do good work.
Thank you, colleagues.
And the reason why I said that is now you're really committed because you agreed and you actually agreed. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Council. Congratulations, Councilmember McVeigh. Be in touch.
Okay, so now we're moving on to item D, which is the 2025 agreement with the Suquamish Tribe to provide services at the Recovery Resource Center. And this is Kim Hendrickson. Kim.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This is a continuation of a discussion that was started during the last council session where Mr. Gelder presented on this item, and I believe there were some follow-up questions for Council about our new partnership with the Suquamish Tribe at the Recovery Resource Center. It's wonderful to have a room that's so full tonight. Thinking there might be some folks in the audience that are not aware of the city's running a Recovery Resource Center. So just a few comments before we go into the agenda item to take advantage of the fact there's so many people in the room tonight. It's been about a year. In Upper Poulsbo Village, the city of Poulsbo has opened and is operating a place where people can come for free that are looking for help with alcohol use, drug use, other behavioral health issues, or just looking for a place to go to get some peer support. In the year that we've been open, we've been able to serve well over 200 people, most of them from North Kitsap. I'm biased, but as the department that's running the center, it's been an unqualified success. And I just want to extend an invitation to the many business owners that are sitting in the room tonight. If there's somebody in your employ or somebody that you know that needs some help in Poulsbo, our doors are open for walk-ins from 10 to 4 every day. Again, everything is free. We always welcome friends and strangers that come through the door that might need some assistance. And with that said, I'll go to the agenda item for tonight.
If I could, with that overview explanation, I must call out credit to our mayor, Becky Erickson, who brought with her 10 years ago a very progressive social agenda to address emerging drug addiction, homelessness, and substance abuse problems. And you brought Kim Hendrickson over. You have been a godsend. I would say to the people in the audience to be aware that Kim is the leader in the state of Washington. She helped train the city of Seattle when they went to stand up their program. She has spoken in Olympia to the 281 cities, and I had the ability to accompany her to Washington, D.C. to present to the National League of Cities. So I just wanted to share with everyone the caliber of what we're dealing with here. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Kim.
Well, when you have a police chief who comes into your council chambers in 2013 and has a big plastic box like this filled with used heroin needles, and he dumps them in the middle of the floor, guess what? You better do something, right? And that's what happened. There are heroes everywhere, but it's one of them certainly is not me. It has been a long road, and I'm so honored to work with Kim Hendrickson. I think we all are. You do a great job, Kim. And now we have the support and understanding of the Suquamish tribe as well. So, Mr. Eck.
Yeah, I just want to point, I sent Kim a picture. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at your AWC annual report. It's been in our boxes this week, but in addition to that work, the Poulsbo Fire Cares program, which Kim was instrumental in starting, was highlighted in the AWC report as a statewide program of note. And on a personal note, I had the gentleman approach me thanking me for our resource center because he informed me that his AA group was losing their space on Bainbridge Island to meet. And our resource center was able to provide them a new home that they were able to continue their group rather than having being forced to break up and disband. And so we're not just providing services to the city, we're providing services across the Kitsap and probably further south too. But, so I want to pass that thanks on from their group because yeah, they were looking at having nowhere to meet and would have probably disbanded. But the resource center let them find a new home.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion.
If I could just quickly talk
Oh,
about a couple of things that might have come up during the last discussion about our new partnership with the Suquamish tribe. If I understand a couple of questions correctly from council members, one question was about the number of people that the tribe would be serving at the recovery center under our new partnership. Under the contract, there's a minimum of 20 hours per week of a substance use professional on site. I would estimate that amount of time at the recovery center will allow that person to see between 5 and 10 people per week. The tribe will be at the center, I think, for more than just those 20 hours a week. So that 5 to 10 hours is a minimum under our contract, and I suspect the time that they spend helping folks at the center will actually be more. There was another question, I think, about whether the Suquamish tribe would be using funds intended for a different project related to addressing substance use disorders might be used as part of this partnership. These are two entirely separate projects. So this agreement is unique to what we're doing at the Recovery Center. At this point, doesn't involve funding or staffing for the eventual OTP that I know they're hoping to open in North Kitsap. So
OTP.
opioid treatment program.
Mr. McVeigh.
Kim, thank you for appearing tonight to answer those questions. As we said last week, I think we're all very excited about the partnership with the Suquamish tribe at the Resource Recovery Center. And with that, I would be happy to make a motion. Move to approve 2025 agreements with Suquamish tribe to provide services at the Recovery Resource Center.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any questions or conversations about this motion? Seeing and hearing none, Mr. McVeigh.
McVeigh, aye.
Adai.
Eckert, aye.
No, aye.
Pro I.
Stern proudly says aye.
Favor aye. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. And before I go, if any of our new partners from the tribe are tuning in tonight, I just want to say at a personal level how honored I am to be starting this partnership. And I know it's going to be a benefit to both of our communities. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, now we're moving on to resolution number 2025-03, downtown parking implementation. And this is Heather Wright, and Josh is not here tonight?
That's correct. I will be representing this conversation this evening. I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation I'll be sharing with council to provide for the community so they can have a little bit of background to where we are this evening. And I just want to echo some of the sentiments while I'm pulling this up of what I heard from our council and from our community. I want to acknowledge that this is a difficult decision, and I want to also assure this community that I have met individually with each council member to discuss this in detail. And I know that we've all received many letters and they're all being taken seriously by our council. And I want to thank everyone for coming tonight because this, as one of the members said tonight, Teresa, this is a complex issue. I think that's the perfect word to describe this. We last met a week ago and council was asked to pass a resolution on the timing of the implementation of downtown parking. This conversation has been ongoing, most recently for the last 2 years, where the committee that was formed and appointed by this council met within this room here for about a year and a half. And their work culminated with a recommendation to move forward with 4 steps, which were improved signage, enforcement, securing employee parking, and ultimately paid parking. In November of last year, we received a recommendation from our consultant on what the next steps would be in terms of implementation, with recommendations on days of the week, amount per hour, employee parking charges. And after that, the council gave staff direction to continue working towards implementation. What happens last week was council was asked to pass a resolution on the timing of that implementation. And now I'll share my presentation. Council, just to highlight some of what we've heard this evening. There's various perspectives on this issue. We've heard many of those tonight. But some of what wasn't voiced as well tonight that has been discussed and shared by our consultants that have been analyzing this issue and have practiced implementation of paid parking in other communities is that paid parking can encourage turnover. It can provide with that an increase in visitors and revenues for our businesses. There are recommendations that this would actually support businesses, even though we have very loudly heard the concerns from those business owners that this could detract and deter locals from visiting and that they will no longer shop here. There's also the concern of how this could change the flavor of our downtown. One of our comment letters used those words. I thought that can accurately capture some of those concerns. There's been conversation about how do we create more spaces? If we do not move forward with a paid parking model, how are we going to secure the funding to actually get additional spaces as our city continues to grow? And as Councilmember Tabor mentioned last week, we are poised to grow in the next 20 years to 17 to 18,000 residents is where we're predicted to grow. And if we're at this position now, where are we going to be 20 years going forward? And that's one of the things that we've talked about with that 20-year timeline. If not after 20 years of studying this, when are we going to make those changes? There's been a conversation around a shuttle, some mounting interest in that possibility. And then I'll share, for those who weren't aware that are in the audience, the HDPA had also conducted their own study in 2023 exploring parking behavior. And they estimated a cost to each parking space and how much it actually contributed annually to our businesses. And I can't verify that this is an accurate number, but I can just tell you what their hard work produced. And they said that each of those spots contributes about $55,000 a year to revenue to our businesses. And the concern that I've heard from this council is, and what our studies have shown, is that those spaces, those front row spaces at our waterfront parking lot, also known as the Anderson lot, and also along Jensen and Front Street, are primarily being occupied by employees and also from owners of the businesses. And so are we missing out on that revenue? Because as Councilmember Crowe said, we're circling around for 20 minutes finding a spot. And can implementation of paid parking be the solution to free up and actually bring more revenue to our businesses? And then of course, there's been a question about the employee parking, and the model that's proposed does offer some secure employee parking, which is something the city does not currently offer. But it would be a resource that the city would provide on their own parking lot, as well as securing additional parking. And how much do we need? And how do we get to providing that solution? And we are investigating that as well. So this is just some of the various perspectives. I just wanted to assure everyone that we are listening. What we were asked to do last night and what we're coming back to do this evening is to secure the timing of these decisions. And before you are the 3 options that were shared with council, the first of which is to launch improvements with the goal of implementing them by summer of 2025. And those improvements would be improved signage, designated employee parking, enforcement, and paid parking in those approved locations. As members of the council have stated, it's roughly 247 spaces, or about 44% of our inventory of parking spaces, meaning the city-owned spaces. There's about 12, just for simple math, there's about 1,200 spaces downtown, and about half of them are privately owned and half of them are owned by the city within our parking lots and on street. And this proposal would be for the city-owned spaces at about 44%. And I don't have the number in front of me, but it's in the 20-something percent of the total. That would be for paid parking. The remainder of the spaces would be hourly parking, and they would be enforced. So this is option number one that council last week requested that staff bring forward in a resolution. The other options that were provided to council for consideration were to launch the improvements of signage, designated employee parking, enforcement, and paid parking in 2026, while continuing to conduct outreach and seeking council input in 2025. So basically, we would do everything in 2026 that we are planning to do in summer of 2025. And we would just continue to build on the hard work that we've been doing, which also includes securing additional parking with some of our partners within our city. And then the third option that was presented to council was more of a hybrid approach, which is to launch the signage changes, employee parking, and then enforcement in 2025, and then implement paid parking in the summer of 2026. So with that, I will pause and turn this over to council for discussion and a recommendation.
Okay, so you have option one, option two, and option three. Heather, we have a resolution that's in the packet that is reflective of what, option one?
That's correct.
Okay, so the resolution in your packet is reflective of option one. The resolution that you spoke to last week, I think, is option three,
That's
which is
correct.
the phased in approach, ending in paid parking in 2026. And I'm not sure what option two is. So, but option one is the one that's in your packet. Option three is the phased approach that we saw last week. Okay. Mr. McVeigh and then Mr. Stern.
Thanks, Mayor. Heather, I just want to make sure, I'm going to take a minute. I read all of the email messages we've received. I've read some of the social media posts. That there is a little disinformation out there, and I just want to make sure everybody is clear on what the proposal is and what it isn't, before I kind of express my opinion. So of the 600 city-owned public spaces downtown, under the proposal, under the resolution we're discussing tonight, approximately 60% of those spaces would remain free parking, and about 40% would be paid parking. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. The employee parking that we've initially designated, with perhaps more to come, is approximately 42 spaces in the lower King Olaf parking lot off of Front Street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And then I also think it's important to understand, and I want to make sure that we'll have the numbers right here, and I'm going to use round numbers. The consultant's finding, if you dig into the details of what we've been discussing for the last 2 years, the consultant's projections were that if we adopted, we've been calling it a hybrid parking model, because it combines free spaces and paid spaces. Okay, so that's why when I say hybrid parking, that's what I'm talking about. All right. So the consultant we hired that works with parking in cities nationally, they estimated for us that if we were to adopt the outline of this program, that the city could expect to receive, round numbers, approximately $1 million a year in parking revenue, correct?
That's correct.
And after the expenses of operating the paid parking program, there could be an estimated profit of approximately $500,000 that the city, working with downtown business owners, HDPA, could invest in adding to parking capacity, be it constructing spaces, be it leasing spaces from First Lutheran Church, be it starting a shuttle service. I have those numbers correct, about $1 million in revenue, about 500,000 in profit, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. So I want to make sure everybody understands that, all right? I have vocalized in the past that I support the outline of this program, and I just want to, the reason we're approaching it like this tonight is that our staff and our budget, we've been spending a lot of time on this issue. And the mayor and her staff would like to know from council whether we are prepared to adopt an outline of this parking program before we continue to go forward and spend more staff time and money on consultants. Because if we continue to do that and council should not support it, essentially pull the rug out, we would like to know about it now, right? Before we expend additional time and resources.
We've been studying this since, what did the resolution say? 2010, 2012, 2014,
Yeah.
on and on, yes.
So one of the reasons I've been supporting, again, 40% of spaces paid parking, 60% continue to be free, designated employee parking. The reason that I have been supportive of this approach primarily is because it is the only option, to my knowledge, that provides a source of revenue to add future parking capacity. There's some folks who would like to just enforce what we have now. That's going to cost about $100,000 to $200,000 a year in enforcement costs. We would be lucky if the tickets that were written by, I call this sort of the Barney Fife model of writing tickets to people and upsetting them. We would be lucky to pay for the cost of implementing, essentially enforcing what we have now. It would provide no new revenue for adding to parking capacity. And when I asked some of my colleagues, I asked citizens who I've engaged with on these conversations, I have asked, okay, if not this option, how would you propose that we pay to invest in adding parking capacity in the future? Because we all know we need to add parking capacity, additional transportation options in and out of downtown. And I hear crickets. I don't really hear anything specific, any new ideas to accomplish that. Then finally, I want our community, particularly the business owners here tonight, to understand that if we don't have a source of revenue coming from these 40% of spaces for paid parking, the chances of adding to parking capacity in downtown Poulsbo are slim and none in the next 20 years, okay? The first thing people want to go to is, let's apply for grants. Well, our staff has tried that over the years. No one is giving grants out for parking ramps, okay? So if we don't do it this way, we would have to be prepared to add no parking capacity. I'm concerned that would not allow our downtown business community to continue to grow and prosper. And I think we need a source of revenue to add parking capacity in the future. There is no money tree here. And when we look at all of the other priorities that this city has, be it sewer, be it water, be it infrastructure. Have you driven down Third Avenue lately, or some of the roads over in Old Town? We have a lot of infrastructure and other needs, not to mention continuing to staff and increase our police department. There's just a lot of needs. And so I just want you to understand, I see this as a real opportunity for us to invest in downtown and partnering with the business community to decide, how are we going to do these things? All the answers are not here tonight. This is an outline for consideration of how we're going to might approach this. There's a lot of things still to be left in. To the points raised earlier, there are some options that we could perhaps build in for a grace period of an hour. I'm open to talking about that. One of the things that some of us have started talking about as a possible compromise is, could we have one locals day a week where we've heard some concerns, people need some time to come downtown, pick up a book they've ordered, pick up a pair of shoes they've ordered, pick up a gift, special gift, whatever. And so perhaps we could waive parking fees on a Monday or a Tuesday, something like that. I'm open to talking about those kinds of things. We all want to make this work. And there's a whole lot of different options that we can consider. We need to work together to solve this problem. As I mentioned last week, virtually every city council member and mayor that has run for office over the past number of decades has run on a platform of improving or solving the downtown parking problem. Some of us are getting tired of kicking the can down the road, and we see this as a real option to move the city forward. Thank you.
Okay, do you have more presentations or do you just want to keep going with the dialogue? Okay, who wants to talk next? Ed, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I've tried real hard, as few of my colleagues know, to get to a yes. And I'm going to state very boldly and clearly, I haven't been able to get there. I will not be supporting a paid parking model. I'm only one of 7. I know some of my colleagues up here, including the mayor, feel very strongly. They've worked hard. I understand their vision is to build funds in order to acquire land that ultimately would result in a parking garage. But applying the test of make sure the cure is not worse than the illness, the first option is do nothing, right? We all live with this problem. I've called it a good problem, but I'm not going to minimize that it's a problem. I think we first need to look at an incremental approach. This sounds rather technical, but my colleague, Councilman Newell, who for many years after the Navy was Central Kitsap School District, one of the managers, handled all of the capital facilities. You phase projects. As Diane Linnaeus, our Public Works Director, knows, when you can't get from A to Z at once, you phase it. So I am committed to phasing this as a glimmer of hope. I know the city's resistant to paying for improvements incrementally where there isn't revenue to offset it. But I'm here to say that my vote will be for approaching this incrementally, starting with simple solutions. Number 1, signage. That means it has to come out of the pocket of the city. Maybe someday with HDPA and they can look at their resources, but not make it conditional to that. Let's just get started. So that would be suggestion number 1. The parking enforcement would be the next level. When I had a business downtown from 1986 to 1996, and my clients would park in front, and they come in and it says, Ed, I was near the Up Jensen. It says 2 hours. And I used to joke, I remember this, Mayor, they haven't enforced that since 1948. Don't worry about it. Maybe we do need to enforce. And again, it would be an outlay from the city because we have an outside revenue source for it. So we'd have to bite the bullet on that and see how a year or 2 go by and then evaluate from there. I don't want to belabor this. I know my colleagues want to speak, so I'm going to keep that really simple. Mayor, I'd be willing to look at option number 3, but remove the implement paid parking in summer 2026.
Ms. Livedall. This is really hard. This is one of the hardest things that any of us have done, but for me, I'm going to speak for myself. Since I joined council, I work downtown. I volunteer on the HDPA board. I organize plantings and decorating. I grew up here. I love this town. I love people in it. Being on the other side of an issue from people I care deeply about is really hard. So I want to start there. Free parking is not free. I'm going to say it again. Free parking is not free. It's part of overhead for any business or entity that owns it and uses it or leases it, however it's structured.
But if you take yourself out of downtown Poulsbo, outside of this collective, and move yourself to Town and Country, Central Market, Home Depot, Walmart, virtually anywhere else in this town, it's private property that someone owns, and that cost is built into the structure of everything, right? So while it feels free, it's in the cost of whatever good or service is being provided there. So it's an illusion. There is a cost to free parking from an economic standpoint. So we seem to all agree that there's a problem here. It's been going on. I recall vividly when Nico Jensen from Longship Marine said that she found it mentioned in the Spirit of Poulsbo over 100 years ago. So this isn't hasty. We've been going over and over and round, like we circled the parking lot. I don't want to do that anymore. And I want businesses to be able to truly grow because we're able to invest in more parking. During our time with the committee and our meetings with our consultants and designing the study, the most recent study. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, but I'm going to move on to a different point. I'll come back to that. Okay, I don't have to get it all in once. All right.
It's
I'll-
okay.
I'll let you guys keep going.
Okay, there's Mr. Newell and then Mr. Eckert and then Mr. Tabor.
Yeah, I think what we're struggling with is our love of our community here and how do we best keep that vibrant energy. All of us have our timelines of when we first came to Poulsbo, won't belabor mine, but I pleasure of being on city council now for about 14 months. Started checking in and actively listening to this discussion almost 2 years ago now. And there are things we can do together that get us to a better place. Kind of go to a couple different things, then come back to what I think is the approach. Additional parking downtown may not be possible at any price. If I look at the Walker recommendation, one of the places they identified for a parking structure was King Olaf Lot. A two-story structure there adds approximately 50 spaces, which 50 spaces, when it gets done, is not a game changer. It is specifically 48, a two-story structure. So there is now a silver bullet. If we go up 4 stories, we can get quite a few in there, but I don't see that as potentially possible to go up 4 stories. And so we're going to be struggling with how to provide access down here, and it might not be via our traditional cars and autos. I did find the Walker report from October of 23 to be comprehensive. It did outline a path of low effort, mid effort, high effort strategies. One could translate that is to near term, midterm, or longer term. When I looked at the parking committee results that came to us in May of 24, they echoed some of that. Here's our recommendations, and it was to approach it from a near-term, easy, midterm, and then take a look at paid parking. We have up on the screen behind me 3 different approaches to this. One is to do everything this summer. One is to do everything in the summer of 26. The third one is to let's go with signage and to implement signage and wayfinding, to work with HDPA on employee parking, to identify How do we do parking enforcement? What does that look like? Because we've heard tonight that even with a paid parking model, there still is enforcement. We talked about having to enforce in other areas other than just the paid parking lots. We have things that we have to solve. How would we pay for this? Since I've been here, we've had several times where we voted, and we've added significant dollars to projects. We've had the ability to make that happen. On this specific one, we implemented a transportation benefit district about 2 years ago. Everyone is paying into that. We have parking enforcement cameras right now that is generating revenue. Is it generating $1 million a year? No. But is it generated enough to get us started? I would argue yes.
Mayor? Yes. Are you talking about the traffic enforcement, the red light?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Mr. Neal? Those are restricted, are they not?
Yeah, they're restricted and we can only have 3.
But what I mean is the spending of those funds is restricted to
The spending of those funds.
of
is
the
restricted?
revenues, anything over operations and maintenance is restricted, correct?
It's going to go back into public safety.
Right,
yes.
it's public safety. We're not
We're not, yeah, no,
necessarily-
we're not paying for other things. Yes, it's going back to public safety. Okay.
And
Sorry.
and enforcement of parking is not considered to be part of that equation?
We'll have to get a legal opinion.
All right, well, let's go down the rabbit hole. Last June, we came up with $500,000 to add on to a park that went over scale. I mean, if we want to sit here and talk about 50,000 here, 75,000 there, we have demonstrated that we've been able to do this on specific projects over the past 12 months that I've been here.
There's a fundamental question, though. Are we offering to help subsidize parking for all the businesses in Poulsbo or just the ones downtown?
I think we're making investments across the town. We are investing in repaving roads. We're investing in Knoll Road. We're making various things.
But what kind of precedent does this set? I mean,
so-
who
so
is?
Let's
this-
not do the debate
So
because we
this-
can
yeah,
debate it yet.
Let me finish, Britt. Okay, I did not interrupt you.
Okay.
And so I'm aligned with following the the outline approach in the Walker study with the recommendations that the parking committee came to us last May that are outlined and identified in approach 3, where we start this summer and then we evaluate and see what makes sense in the summer of 26.
Okay, so that's what I call the phased approach, and that's option 3. The resolution in front of you is option 1. I want to make sure that you all know that. I don't want to have a screw up in the vote. Okay, I think it's Mr. Tabor and then it is Ms. Oh, I'm sorry. Ugh, Gary, I'm sorry.
Gary.
It's Rick. Okay, long day, guys. Sorry. Mr. Eckert, go ahead.
So,
Somebody talk. Okay, go
So-
ahead.
hello, everybody. So looking at this and hearing everything, it seems to me that I'll just say, seems to me a phased approach is best, number 3. I think we have to do paid parking if we want to, so we're talking about having good problems. The city of Poulsbo has a good problem. Well, most of this, or many cities in the US have budget shortfalls. The city of Poulsbo, as you can see, cares and works hard to figure out how we're spending and making sure we're not coming to budget shortfalls and cutting programs and offices unnecessarily that I believe are unnecessary a lot of the times. That's when I'm saying when cities have budget shortfalls, it's unnecessary for them to hit those because they're not looking at how they're spending money and how they're generating revenue down the stream, in 20 years. I think option 3 is enough runway for us to figure out more details on the parking. I think and making the employee parking free, it was such a small sliver of the revenue. I don't think that would impact our goals of maintaining existing access to parking and expanding future parking downtown is the goal, mind you. I don't think that would be negatively impacted by that. And then looking at having 1 or 2, potentially more free parking days, like, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. what have you. And then there's several other options we can consider. Again, if this is implemented and it causes Armageddon, we can look at other options. Before we even roll back, there's other options like local permits and other approaches. So I think it's totally reasonable to have option number 3 and implement some model of paid parking.
Okay, so who's next? I've lost track. Mr. Eckert and then Ms. Crow. Okay, sorry, guys.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, as Gary pointed out, and Heather supported, we're talking about approximately 22% of the parking downtown. Over half of the parking downtown is owned by private businesses, private folks. We do not control. We cannot direct the use of. The city owns less than half, and we are looking at changing, possibly anything to paid on less than half of that. So again, these are the spaces that folks want to use. It's the spaces that folks fight over now. I'm going to be quite honest. I am shocked we've not had an actual fight yet. I am shocked that we have not had essentially a road rage incident in that parking lot down there where the police have had to come and arrest someone, because I have seen the border of that so many times, of people getting frustrated and angry and racing around each other or racing off or cutting each other off. It's a matter of time. And the other half of that is, if we go to just simply enforcing and saying we're going to deal, then everyone needs to acknowledge we are talking about a reduction in service. That is what unless we are authorized to hire another cop, we are talking about a reduction in service, because that means chief needs to direct one of his officers from patrol, of which there are only 2 on the street at any given time, to spend their night, their day, their shift downtown, giving out parking tickets. And so we are accepting a reduction in service in police to have someone dedicated to parking. If we are accepting that, then that's the choice of this council. I will tell you right now, I'm not voting for that, because I think our police have much more serious issues to be dealing with than giving out parking tickets. They can, under the model of, if we have paid, yes, that's part of their duty, and they will go by and check on the other areas, and they will, but if we don't put in the paid, the only way to enforce all of it is essentially dedicating a cop to it. And I don't think that's what we want to do. If we don't use a cop, I know it's been suggested we don't need a cop, then we have to hire someone just for parking enforcement. And as I said last week, does anybody want someone who is a city employee, whose job it is to give out parking tickets, whose job depends on how many parking tickets they give out? I don't want somebody who knows I give out more parking tickets, my job's safe. I don't want that. I don't think anybody in here wants that. So I don't like that idea. So again, this is less than 25% of the parking downtown. And there is parking right now that it goes unused because that's the parking everybody wants. So I support sticking with resolution 1, which is what we move forward, because again, details are not provided yet. And we've already said, in order to do number 1, it's dependent on the staff being able to implement it. If the staff can't do it by this summer, then it's next year anyway. But what we're doing is we're just directing them to try to do it by this summer, and they may not be able to.
Okay, so I have Pam, and then I hear Britt wants to speak again, correct? Go ahead, Pam. Sorry, Ms. Crow.
Yes, no, that's fine. In brief, in trying to find a solution, I'm looking at the proposed paid parking walker image that has purple shading. I don't know if folks have seen this. It's displayed upstairs and as well as on the website, the city website. There's a lot of purple shading along Front Street, and it's pretty heavy. And then there is what appears to be yellow or gold for free 20-minute loading. I'd like to, having that solution put into place and paid parking applied, it would be great if there was some edging back of some of those purple shaded areas. And I,
Can you put that map up that shows
Thank
actually,
you,
yeah,
thank you, yeah.
actually what
Okay.
we're talking about?
Thank you.
What will be a paid, it's
Yeah.
a paid parking, so people know what it is.
so, thank you, Heather.
Oh, no problem.
Okay, so I,
There it is.
I,
So
I,
the purple on here is the paid parking. Everything else is not charged, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the brown up there, that is King Olaf, correct?
This is the King Olaf is correct, right here.
And that is not paid parking.
That's correct.
Okay, and all the streets up there, all of that area, Third Avenue, not paid parking, correct?
Mayor,
So it does show,
this graphic is too confusing.
Okay.
I would not, I mean, this is an old graphic. It's showing paid
I was just
parking on
trying to help
Third.
Ms.
We're not,
Crowe.
I
Okay,
understand.
all right.
The paid parking will be in Anderson Parkway, on Front Street, up through Sunset, and on Jensen up through Iverson.
okay, thank you.
Those are the 3 areas.
I was just trying to help Ms.
Right.
Crowe.
I understand, but this is an old map and it's very misleading.
Okay, thank you, for chiming in, Mayor and, Councilmember, McVeigh. I appreciate that. I do know it's old, but I do feel that it does need to be updated to reflect, what is a possibility. Oh, is that it right there?
this is,
Okay, so it's still, to me, a little heavy in the purple shading along Front Street. My point is there a way that can, enhance the free, not 20-minute, 30 minutes, as well as a handicapped, as I said before. And then I understand that it's being shared, or it has been shared regarding the percentage of parking that would be implemented. It's still, it's still a pain point. Is there a way to, first of all, I'm in favor of a phased approach and preferably 3, Plan 3 with council input and outreach. I know people are growing tired and weary, but we still need to hear the voice of the community with something being moved forward and implemented. And I know that there's been opportunity for folks to share voice, and for, sounds like 20 years, we have to keep in mind that I'm about to call myself out. Yeah, I moved into Poulsbo in 2007. So I'm kind of on the edge of that. And I'm thinking of some of the business owners, they haven't been here for 20 years. Some have, some haven't. I'm sorry, not all, but I do want to call out that some have been here a long time. There's a lot of folks that did share that they grew up here. But it doesn't feel like it's been talked about. My point is for 20 years for some people. So I'm not a fan of number 1 or number 2. So.
Okay, it's Miss Livedall and then Mr. McVeigh. And then I need to get some resolution going here, guys. We've been talking a long time.
when we talk about how long this has been under discussion, it's really not, we have sort of these nebulous timelines, but there's the actual timeline of when we convened the parking committee and when a survey was put out for the community to respond to. And I'm going back, and I'm sure there are better ways to search it up, but I can see that on July 17th of 2023, the city page, excuse me, on Facebook put out the survey and discussed when it would be open until, and it was, shared dozens of times. I have had repeated conversations over those last 2 years, and I think all of my colleagues, past and present, were doing the same thing. It was not a secret. These discussions were not held in secret. They were open, they were public. We were really desirous of having the best response to the survey that we could in terms of volume. We really wanted to get a lot of responses, and I think our consultants were surprised at how many we did get. I think it was somewhere in the 700 responses, but I know there's far more than that for people who care. So it's been frankly frustrating that we've been at this for 2 years, and it's now that we're being told we haven't reached out and we haven't invited opinions when we really were trying to do that from February of 2023 in an active way, not in a passive way. So I am concerned that if we don't move option one forward, we will never regain this momentum. There is never going to be a time when this community says, yes, please, assess paid parking downtown. When is that going to happen?
Okay. Let's do it.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Let me, just one comment.
Okay.
Heather, can you put those three options up again? Councilmember Tabor, I just want to point out to you that if we were to support option three, which isn't on the agenda for action tonight, if we were to support option three, delaying the implementation of paid parking till summer 2026, and Mr. Stern said he wouldn't even support that at this point. I will remind you that there are 3 council positions up for election in 2025, as well as the mayor's position up for election in 2025. So you're going to have a whole bunch of new folks around here that you're going to have to re-educate all over again. And if we do not vote tonight on option one, I am convinced that this will never happen. And I just want you to understand that.
Would you like to put a motion on the table, Mr. McVeigh? Because we have to move along.
Yes, I could, but you got it handy there? You got it handy? Well, I'm gonna let Britt.
I move to approve resolution number 2025-3 regarding the timing of downtown parking implementation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now, this is, according to Heather Sly's, option one. I just want to make sure you know what you're voting for. Okay, this is option one. Motion and a second. Any further questions? Mr. McVeigh?
McVeigh, aye.
Livedall, aye.
Eckert, aye.
Newell, nay.
Pro nay.
Stern, nay.
Tabor, nay.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. I'm gonna make one comment on this. I've been working on trying to fix parking in this town ever since I've been elected. This council chose not to go forward this evening. It will stay the way it is. It'll stay exactly the way it is. And when you folks are frustrated enough, maybe you will like to come and talk to the next new mayor. Okay, because your businesses are going to be harmed. Right now, you're flatlining in your sales. We know that. We see the numbers. And the reason why is you do not have access to customers as much as you did even a year and a half ago because of the congestion. I got the numbers, guys. I can see your numbers. So sooner or later, this is going to have to be addressed. And it won't be me. It'll be someone else. It'll be a different council. But I'm warning you, as somebody that has worked for the downtown for 15 years, watch businesses come, businesses go. From the Great Recession all the way to today, I'm warning you, you're playing with fire if you don't address this somehow. Now I'm going to say something else to you. The Historic Downtown Poulsbo Association was formed in 1988 when King Olaf parking lot was created. The bylaws say the Historic Downtown Poulsbo Association, which is your business association, is responsible for creating and managing parking. It's in your bylaws. Did you know that? Did you know that? Denver did. He's the president. He's read it. Come on up, Denver. Go ahead.
So I just want to make a quick correction because I'm working really hard on this.
Come to the mic. Come to the mic.
And with utmost respect, Becky, quick correction, because I'm working on these bylaws. It doesn't say we're responsible for, it says we can. Does not say that we have to, because if it said that, we would have a whole nother issue. I'm going to do my best. I want you guys to do 3, and I want to implement it. I want you guys to vote on it. I don't want the next council to vote on it. I want you guys to put it on the docket and get it going. But I want it to be in that phase step. And that's
Okay.
what I'm hearing from my businesses.
Is
okay?
that what you guys are hearing? Phase option 3? Council, would you like to entertain a motion of option 3, which is phase it in and have paid parking in 2026?
It will have to go on next week's agenda. It was not on tonight's agenda. That would have required a motion before we voted.
Okay, it'll be on next week's agenda. Now, if we do option 3, can I get some support from the downtown business owners, please? Okay, are we in agreement here? Okay, next week, option 3.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Clarification,
Yeah.
clarification. If we go to option 3, are we gonna start ticketing downtown?
Yes, it's enforcement first.
So when your customers start getting parking tickets, understand that's what you asked for.
Okay. All right.
Employees and
We have A
yourselves.
lot of other things we have to do tonight. I think we're gonna put this parking question to bed for one night. Just a second, city administrator, and we will talk next week. Go ahead, Rob.
A clarification, Madam Mayor and Council, that our next meeting for the council is actually March 5th and not next week.
Thank you very much. It'll be March 5th. Be here and watch us do this, okay? Go ahead.
And I would like to invite Muddy, I'll be there 2 hours early on March 5th. And I'll walk through all of the questions I've seen come to emails, 90% of those points I've arrived to at, yes, we need paid parking one way or another. So I'll be there 2 hours early in front of the building. If anyone wants to ask me, any one of these items, how did I get to a yes on paid parking? Happy to go through it.
Mayor, I'm also concerned with, the reason we were voting on this item tonight, as I understand it, is we have 2 colleagues who will not be here on March 5th. I want you all to hear this. We were accused of moving this up to rush it through, okay? Not true. The reason we moved it up is because 2 of my colleagues are not going to be here to vote. And we thought it was important that all 7 of us vote on this.
Okay,
In absence, can I do proxy
can you,
vote?
can you call in?
Yes.
Okay.
I will try. Oh. I will pay for internet on that
We're gonna
cruise.
deal with this. We will deal with this. I really think for God's sakes, let's do something about parking. Okay, so March 5th, be there, be square. We're gonna do this again. Got it? And I want a round of applause here. We've been working our butts off. Come on. Thank you very much. Okay, where the heck am I on the agenda?
Denver's buying the first round of Western Red, I think. I heard.
Okay, we're gonna take a 10-minute break before we go into the workshop.
This will be resolved before you leave. It will. It will.
Things are hard.
I was The first thing on our workshop agenda is city administrator and department head comments, and I'll go to Rob first and then we'll hit the department heads. What's going on with you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Last week it was sort of sprung on me. I would say that, it was department head comments and I wasn't necessarily prepared to make comments, but thank goodness that Diane did, but I was remiss in extending my appreciation and thanks to all of our public works staff who responded to our snow and icy conditions the week before. So I wanted to make sure that I reiterated that. But also, I really want to share my appreciation for Heather and Josh taking on a very robust topic that you all just talked about. But also, if I may sort of put on a former elected hat in the next comment, and that is my appreciation to all of you. It is really important part of the public process to have an engaged community and a council that is willing to sort of roll up their sleeves and kind of deal with the sticky stuff, because this is it's as sticky as it gets, and it is definitely appreciated. And it's an honor for me to be able to work with a city organization that has a council that is willing to do just that. So thank you for that. Also, just to let you know, as a quick heads up, that the legislative session is fast and furious. We're coming up to our first deadline, which is on Friday. The 21st is the policy cutoff. So basically that means that any bill, they have to get out of their committee of origin. If they're not voted out and out of there by Friday, then they're presumed dead for the remainder of the session, which is a relative term when it comes to the legislature, because they can always resuscitate something if they determine it necessary to implement the budget. But I also wanted to give you a heads up on a piece of legislation that passed today off the Senate floor, speaking of parking. So we actually had a bill, let's see, I think I cut off the number, Bill 5184 passed off the floor today. There was a House version that did not pass, but that specifically was going to be restricting a city's ability to regulate parking fairly extremely. And some of the examples of what was going to be in place was that a city, a code city or county may not require more than 0.5 parking spaces per residential dwelling unit. Also, that existing buildings undergoing change of use, so we could not require any minimums for parking for buildings going under a change of use, residents under 1,200 square feet, commercial spaces under 5,000 square feet, affordable housing, senior housing, housing for people with disabilities, facilities that serve alcohol, which is a commercial building infrastructure.
No drinking and driving.
No drinking and driving. Well, maybe that's the logic. I'm not sure, but childcare facilities and commercial spaces with mixed use projects. It passed, but it did not. It passed with an amendment that actually helps Poulsbo. So it was amended on the floor to exempt any cities that are 20,000 or less. So we have a few years before we would be subject to that, and any development thereafter would be subject to that. So I just wanted to give you a quick heads up.
That's Bremerton, that's Bainbridge.
Right. Yeah. So, and then Councilmember Eckert sold one of my items, and that is this item was probably in your inbox, and it is the Empowering Washington Cities and Towns, the AWC annual report. And on page 18, it does call out on the very top the Poulsbo Cares team program. So that's wonderful exposure there. And with that, I will conclude my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob. Heather, anything?
Good evening, council members of the public. I just wanted to share that our EIS comment period ended on Tuesday. We received a total of 6 letters, and within those letters, there are about 40 different comments. So we are going to move forward with our joint planning commission and council meeting, which will be on Tuesday March 11th. So I will send you all a formal invite via email, and it's a joint meeting with our commission and council to select our preferred growth alternative for our comprehensive plan. And also, I want to echo what Rob just spoke to, our city administrator Gelder spoke to in regards to parking. And I just really appreciate your thoughtful comments and all that you've provided to this discussion. And I also want to applaud you all on making a recommendation this evening. So thank you.
Who's next?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council and citizens. A couple updates. First, the most exciting one, which is small, but it's a big deal. This is the first time in our agency's history in the Parks and Rec Department that we have a National Recreation and Parks Association professional membership. So we're investing in our staff. That's our biggest asset here at the city, as you know, is our team. And our team is excited. I know our Parks and Rec commissioners are also excited to do online trainings and really focus on professional development. So folks are thrilled on that end. On that same note, we still have an opening for the Parks and Rec Commission. I've heard of 2 people being interested. So community members, if you're interested in joining the Park and Rec Commission, please get your application in likely next week, since I anticipate we'll have some coming in. And we still have a few openings on the Poulsbo Tree Board. On other exciting news, staff got to walk the new WashDOT property that's 1.7 acres that's on public surplus. We have first right of refusal. It is, council might remember in November, December, I showed we have the WashDOT mitigation property that's slowly coming to us. That's 13 acres. And that was a great property that we walked. So council, you will be seeing an item come to you on the business agenda early next month. Because we do need to get back to WashDOT about what we intend, if council would like to move forward with that or not. Staff are going to get that teed up for your deliberation. And then I'll skip a couple of these ones. The senior newsletter, we're still working with our partners across over at the North Kitsap Senior Center and Fishline, our senior task force, and we're completely updating the newsletter. It's generating a lot of excitement. It may not seem like much, but we're taking input from our seniors about the font, the formatting, how can we provide information at a glance? And they're excited. And then lastly, in about next weekend is our Poulsbo Family Formal at the Sons of Norway. So if you haven't gotten tickets, it's for any age, any ability. The first session dance is low sensory, and then we have a regular sensory dance, and it's a lot of fun. We have a DJ and a number of other folks. And the rest of the areas I'll probably say for another update, because there's some more exciting news.
That's a digital newsletter?
It's a digital newsletter, but we're working on how many we can print for those that are requested, since there's not a funding mechanism right now to print too many. But we want to make sure we're meeting our needs of our seniors for the newsletters.
Since it's specifically seniors too, remind me and I'll send you a link. There's a free web tool that you can use that you can test digital products for visual acuity that tells you if you're using colors that are too close to each other, makes it hard to read for folks.
Okay.
And so you can kind of test it, and something might look really nice and festive and pretty, but it's hard for folks to read. So
thank you, Councilmember Eckert. I'll email you. Go ahead. No, it's your event. Okay. Kim and I are debating, but there's a community event that is sponsored by some folks who you saw earlier, the Poulsbo Rotary. That's the Poulsbo Blues and Jazz, the second event that's happening. And I know there's a number of staff who are volunteering to help, and Kim is one of them who's volunteering. But the Poulsbo Blues and Jazz is supposed to be looks like it's going to be an epic event this coming Friday, Saturday at the Suns and businesses. There you go.
Good evening, Council. I have some positive news to share as well. On January 15th, Council approved a needs assessment RFP. We were looking for an agency or an entity to help us understand step housing needs and possibilities in North Kitsap. We put that RFP out very soon after you approved the use of $15,000 in city funds and $10,000 in grant funds for that purpose. Weren't sure what we'd get in response to that RFP, but we ended up getting 2 really high quality submissions. An intergovernmental group consisting of council members from here, Poulsbo and Kitsap County will be reviewing those applications tomorrow, and we hope to be able to report back to council relatively quickly about who we chose and how we're going to kick off that process. So very excited that we had 2 high quality submissions. Council might remember approving an agreement with Kitsap Homes of Compassion several months ago to operate a women and children's recovery house in Kingston. It is up and running. They've already placed 2 women from Poulsbo in the Kingston house. So you all took a leap of faith doing something in Kingston, thinking it might help Poulsbo residents. It already has. So very proud to relay that, that positive news. And Rhiannon, if you wouldn't mind, our cafe service started this month at the Recovery Center. February 11th, we served our first meal. Cafe manager Summer Anderson is doing an amazing job about varying up the menu, serving wonderful warm food 3 days a week at the center. It's open to members only, and it really is a part of our peer support effort to create a community space where people can come, make positive connections, celebrate sobriety, and connect to some really good people and opportunities. We did a field trip today. We went out to Port Townsend to visit their cafe, their recovery cafe. We love going to different places to steal their ideas and bring them back to Poulsbo. And I just love this picture because I get to show off my incredible team. So good day today for the center, and we are now serving lunches 3 days a week at the Recovery Center.
Can you explain how you become a member so people understand?
Absolutely, absolutely. So membership at the Recovery Center is free and open to anybody that's interested in being a part of a recovery community. What what membership consists of is sitting with one of our staff for something like 10 to 15 minutes to answer some basic questions about goals that you yourself might have for your recovery, needs that you have, and interests that you have at the center. And then you're a member. We're very inclusive. We welcome folks to come in and check us out as visitors if they'd like to learn more before they pursue membership. But being a member entitles you to use the cafe and to take part in cafe food and experiences. And so far, the response has been really quite terrific. So
Would you tell, the Suquamish tribe was here, right?
yeah.
They were here. So when you passed that today, there were people from Suquamish here in the audience, so, which is very cool. So,
Good things happening. Thank you, Council.
thank you, Kim. Over on this side, Brooks.
Good evening, council. Just quick, you might notice someone sitting next to me tonight. This is Maurice Anderson. Maurice Anderson is the city's new senior systems administrator. He's been with us for about a month and learning a lot. And this is his first council meeting. I will continue to be sitting here during council meetings because as a department head, I want to be here for other reasons. But he is going to cross train in case I'm on vacation or something along those lines. He's doing great things. Feel free to reach out to him, stop by the office, say hi. And that's all I got for right now.
Thanks, Brooks. Welcome, Reese. Rhiannon, anything for you? Okay, so we're going to move on to questions and concerns of the city council. Any questions and concerns? Go ahead.
I just want to say that I reached out multiple times to the Port of Poulsbo Commissioner Daryl. I forget his last name, but I'm looking for a response. So if anyone has Daryl's number, please tell him to respond to me. I'm trying to get into those meetings as best I can, and I will hang out down there maybe sometime. They are, but the schedule is not posted anywhere. And I've been trying to get access to when they are, and I haven't been getting clear responses. So if anyone has an inroad there, I would love to find out how I can get access to the Port of Poulsbo.
I'll see what I can do for you.
And thank you.
Okay. Any other council? Go ahead. Ms.
Yeah,
Treasurer.
I want to say they used to be like second or fourth Tuesday or something, but yeah, I went to a couple. But, I just wanted to say, I know Gary mentioned earlier about everybody running to fixed parking. I didn't run the fixed parking, but I did run to try to keep the state from taking over our zoning. So the bill you talked about earlier is very concerning because it's those kind of things that I worry about, specifically when we don't take action. So I just want to keep cheerleading for that. We need to control our own fate because otherwise the state will take over and do it for us. So we need to show them as many examples as we can of Poulsbo doing it right, doing it well, being the example so that they don't do it for us.
Would it be appropriate to invite our lobbyist, Brian, to put him on the agenda
Yeah,
here,
actually,
pretty soon. I mean, he
That's
he
a
was
good idea.
helpful in providing, what he saw as some of the key issues, and we have a legislative agenda, if you will, but it'd be helpful to hear from him about things are going and how we can help,
Maybe in March. Although this
That
time of
was,
year.
that was supposed to be today, but we canceled to be here.
Oh, was it supposed to be?
It-
Oh,
it's crazy down there right now. It's hard to get, I mean, he's a busy guy, but we will definitely try to get something going. Okay. Any other questions and concerns? Okay. Seeing none. Special events in March and April of 2025, and this is Lynn. Is Lynn here? It's Jeff. This is Lynn. He still has a big smile.
Well, I had all those cheese sticks, so. Okay, good evening, Mayor, good evening, council citizens. I'm subbing for Lynn. She is visiting her family down in California. So there are 4 events that are coming up. The first on the list is the family formal that I was just speaking about. So that's at Sons of Norway. We have a couple hundred tickets sold. We're looking for some more folks. We have some great community sponsors. I expect you'll have an after action report, probably weeks or a month later following, and that's at the Sons of Norway. It's here because even though it's not in a public space, it has over 100 people, so it triggers a special event. The next event, and that's on March 1st. The next event is the annual Poulsbo Beer Run. It's the St. Patty's Day Beer Run on the Saturday, March 15th. This has about, wait on one second here, 1,600 people usually attend that. It's well over 1,200. I don't know if they're sold out this year. And that is a charity fund run through Poulsbo's breweries. And so they are visiting Vol Hall, Rainy Days, Western Red, Ties Wine and Brew, which is new to me. I actually don't know where that is. And Bushel and Barrel Cider House will be over at the Viking statue, and they'll have Space City Donut. And the proceeds go to the Blue Star Banner program. This is an annual event that happens. There are some outstanding items that we're waiting for to complete their special event permit. We expect those to come in. The next event, we're going to skip to April. So you'll have some April events as well. And the 2 April events, the first is the Robb Park Easter egg hunt. So this is a public event, not through the city. It's through a private entity, and they ran it last year to great success. Staff had some concerns about too many people parking and crowds up there, but it worked well. This is going to be on Saturday, April 12th. It is open to the public from 10 a.m. to 12:30. They're expecting only 100 people. And believe it or not, we were thinking they might have a couple hundred, but it worked out well. So they're going to do it again this year. And it's free crafts and free egg hunt for the community, about 2,000 eggs. And it's over at Robb Park, and the pavilion will be ready, I am told. And that is going to happen at 10 a.m. to 12:30. They're setting up at 9 a.m. So I would swing up there a little before 10 and say hello. The last event that we have for April is our 2nd annual Earth Day over at Fish Park. So you might remember that it was really well attended. That's going to have about 30 different informative booths, some staff, a whole bunch of volunteers. And what it does is it celebrates Fish Park and our connection to the environment, and has a number of initiatives. And we have our tribal partners there as well. And they had terrific outreach last year. That's on Saturday, the 19th. Fingers crossed for good weather. April 19th, and that's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And please make a note for Saturday, the 19th, because we're also targeting a potential playground community ribbon cutting that same day.
Which one?
Tentatively, fingers crossed, it would be Rotary Morrow on April 19th. So we have to figure out how to do Earth Day and that. But so please just book that date. Yes, we will, Councilmember McVeigh. That is a very good question. I will make a note.
And if you guys haven't ever gone to the Easter egg hunt at Robb Park, at least it used to be a hoot. I mean, it's a lot of kids and everybody was having a lot of fun. And I used to grab some of the toys, put them in my pocket, because there's always a kid that doesn't get an egg and they're in tears. And so I was running around handing out toys. It's really a lot of fun. Great Easter egg hunt. Is that it?
That is it.
That's it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you,
You're
Jeff.
welcome.
Okay,
Mayor, I'd like
yeah.
to suggest that we move up the manufactured mobile home agenda item. I mean, it's a workshop. We're not taking action. So these good folks who are here with this, have been waiting, don't have to sit through the next 4 issues. Could we do that?
I think we can
I think it
probably
would
do
be
that, although I'm
a
sure
courteous
you're
gesture.
thrilled with the whole, okay. So why don't we go ahead and move to item H, which is update on manufactured mobile home parks, policies and legislation assistance. And this is Heather, who is doing a wonderful job tonight. Heather, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening again, council. I have a new presentation for you. Give me one moment to fire it up here. I just want to take a moment to thank our citizens for coming to our council. I know this topic has been brought to us many times over the years, but more so at the end of last year and in recent months. And I just want to applaud the council for directing staff to move forward with this discussion this evening. I'm going to acknowledge that I will interchangeably use the word manufactured and mobile homes. We did have someone from the community speak to that. And I think for this discussion tonight, just bear with me. If you want me to describe the differences, I will. But I'd rather just acknowledge I may do that. We're talking about both this evening. And where we will end this conversation tonight is seeking direction from council on some policy decisions. And I'm going to outline for you all this evening the existing landscape of what we have in terms of manufactured mobile homes, parks within our community, and what our comprehensive plan and our housing action plan has said about how we want to move forward with protection and preservation, and also speak to what our state legislator has done and is looking at in terms of preservation of this important resource, which has served as affordable housing for our community. As someone spoke to this evening, I'm going to share my screen. This housing stock, here we go, represents 10% of our total housing units within our city limits, which is a pretty impressive amount of housing. And the reason that we're talking about this tonight is there's concern that we could lose this resource. And none of these are deed restricted, or sometimes we call that big A affordable. These are little a affordable, meaning they provide affordable housing, but there's no restrictions attached to them to ensure that they'll be affordable in perpetuity. We have 3 parks within our community. You can see here that they range in when they were established, starting in 1970 for 2 of our parks. The last park we had was formed in 1988. 2 of them are age restricted. And in total, we have, do I have my total? Yes, 300, no, I don't have my total up there, do I? It's about 500 something because it gives us our 10% is our total. And now I want to, thank you, 564. What I think is important to note, which I'll emphasize on this next slide, is that these parks are allowed within all of our residential zones. We have residential low, medium, and high. All of the zones allow it, but they do require a conditional use permit. What that means is it's more of a land use process. You can't just come in and build a mobile home park community without going through a process that does include a planning commission recommendation and a hearing examiner's decision. I also think it's important to note that there's a minimum of 5 acres. And if we have seen over the last few years, we are losing the amount of lots that we have, properties that we have that are greater than 5 acres. And what we are experiencing are those are being developed with single family homes, which Ashley is going to share with you all in a moment about the trends of what we're seeing in residential development. So we're not seeing any new ones come online. But I also think it's important to note to this council is that manufactured homes are allowed as a dwelling in all of our residential zones. So you don't have to be within a mobile home park to establish a manufactured home on a residential lot. So I think that's important to note. And the reason I emphasize that is not all communities do this. It is a recommended action to take, and our council's already taken that action. And I did not include those numbers in the 10%. And the 10% are only those that are within parks.
Heather, question for you.
Yes.
Am I remembering right in reading through the advanced materials that if a mobile home, manufactured home, mobile home is located in the city outside of a mobile home park, they have to be built on a foundation?
That's correct.
Am I remembering that correctly? Okay,
You
thank
are.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And council, this has been on your all's radar for many years with the adoption of our housing action plan in 2021. The city did incorporate a strategy and action items around the preservation of mobile and manufactured home parks. And I'll just read aloud what's included because I think it's important to note the sentiment around the importance of this housing type. They provide, quote, some of the most affordable, non-subsidized forms of housing in Poulsbo. Occupants of manufactured or mobile homes who own their unit lease the land under the unit. As property values rise, pressure to redevelop these are putting owners at risk, as we've heard from those this evening and in recent council meetings past. And then the options that the city was asked to consider are to rezone properties to a manufactured home park zone to promote their preservation, establish procedures or guidelines to support nonprofit housing providers that might be interested in acquiring and managing manufactured home parks, and lastly, explore opportunities to collaborate with government and nonprofit partners to fund the repair, maintenance, or rehabilitation of units and manufactured home parks and private utility infrastructure. And I just want to note for those in the audience that aren't aware that council did something very similar to this last year when we helped one of our mobile home parks with some repair and maintenance of their units. So I wanted to acknowledge that council has taken action on some of these policies. This is the new policy that is being proposed. It hasn't been adopted from our comprehensive plan. It does utilize other policies that we had around manufactured housing, acknowledging that it's an important housing stock and that we need to explore creating more stable planning and zoning environment for their continuation and provide flexible and effective development regulations to allow upgrading and modernization of older manufactured mobile home parks. So this is again a proposed policy that would be adopted through the comprehensive plan adoption process that is set for June of this year. And typically, just to acknowledge with council, the way that these policies work is they set the framework for the land development regulations that are adopted either with the plan or in years post-adoption to implement the adopted comprehensive plan. And as we know, fortunately, our state legislature has been making efforts and taking strides. And I want to acknowledge this because this is not the first time that council has asked for me to come and speak to you all about mobile and manufactured home parks. The first time you all asked me to come to you was 2 years ago. It was shortly after my tenure. And at the time, our legislature hadn't adopted some of these policies that are in place now. And at the time, that was something that council acknowledged was a step forward in ensuring that these parks are preserved within our community. What's notable is the opportunity to purchase. This requires that before a mobile home park is sold, that it is the residents have the ability to pursue purchase of those parks. As someone spoke from the community about the right to purchase, the ROC, excuse me, the acronym that they spoke to earlier, that there are groups that do help people that are within our community and across the state that can help people in pursuit of purchasing their mobile home park. The other is about allowing those manufactured homes to be seen as real property. This provides for the owner the ability to receive some financing and to be guaranteed of occupying a lot for a longer duration. So this was the title elimination for manufactured home, and it's not in effect yet, but it's set like many of the bills that are adopted, they have a later adoption and effective date. Yes, I'll pause here.
Can, I'm somewhat familiar with who owns the Poulsbo Mobile Home Park,
Mhm.
but I don't know who owns Viking Park and I don't know who owns Seabird. Do we know? Do you know that right off the top of your head?
I do not know that off the top of my head. If we wanted to, we could.
I'm sorry. Detente?
Okay. Might be, at some point in the future,
Do some research.
might be helpful to know, have a little bit more background on ownership. Thank you.
Okay.
We know who owns Seabird. We know who Seabird is too. So it's just Poulsbo, Spiky Park. And when was it sold? When was the last time do you remember? 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll figure it out. Thank you.
The legislation that is moving through at this time that actually addresses specifically what I think council was asked to explore at the end of last year is providing for the residents some guarantee on what their rent increases will look like. So this bill, which I don't have an update on this evening as to where it is, but um, it does require that rent increases are maximized out. Um, and it would provide that certainty that many of our residents are looking for and provide for them the relief from excessive rent hikes. So again, this one is moving through the adoption and the effective process. So I want to speak to, I'll pause here and I'd like to move on to what we've been asked to specifically take action on and explore some of the pros and cons of that, unless there's any questions on what I've shared. So this council has been asked through letters and through public comment to impose a moratorium. Some of you all have been around long enough to see the beginning of a moratorium. So what a moratorium is, it is a pause on development. You all can utilize your emergency powers if you see a threat and to a potential land use, as we had last year or the last few years on 305 and along Ojeda in particular. You can put a pause on development for a certain period of time. It's either 6 to 12 months, depending on if you adopt a work plan. And that allows us to preclude people from applying for a land use permit. There's opportunity to expand in the duration of that as well. What a moratorium doesn't do is it doesn't go on forever. And the intent is while you have that moratorium in place, you'll be working on land development regulations to implement the overturning of that moratorium. And what our community has asked for us to specifically do is to adopt a moratorium while we pursue a mobile home park overlay. As you saw in the packet, there has been growing interest in these overlays. There's been many communities that have adopted them. This is nothing new. And what it does is it provides an extra level of protection. It would ensure that while it doesn't prevent redevelopment, it would ensure that any redevelopment that did occur would preserve that mobile home park use. Also, an option for council to consider is a rezone. They're very similar in terms of their effectiveness. But the difference that I would use to describe the two is really how quickly we could propose an overlay versus a rezone. Rezones have to go through our adoption process that's mandated in our code, that's outlined in our code, and it only allows those rezones once a year. In November is when an applicant can apply. Yeah, and so it would take us a little bit of time to pursue it. However, we can do an overlay at any time, so it's more expeditious for our council if it's something that they wanted to pursue. But there are some cons that potentially could occur. You would be potentially disincentivizing an owner from providing maintenance on their park and their property. There is a understood decreased property value, not only to that property, but also to adjoining properties, because they are now next to a use that isn't going to redevelop necessarily into what some could classify as a higher and better use, if that's your perception. But in terms of property value, it's seen as a limitation on options, and it can decrease property value. So those are the zoning options that we have available for preservation. Yes, Councilmember Eckert.
I understand it doesn't prevent closure, but can you explain it doesn't prevent redevelopment?
Correct.
Because I think in the notes, it said it could be redeveloped, but it still has to be maintained as a mobile home park.
That's
or
all I want to be clear, is that it doesn't prevent you from redeveloping a mobile home park, meaning that you can still redevelop, so you're not preserving those units that exist in perpetuity.
So you're just keeping the use intact, not the specific structures, layout.
Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to communicate. Thank you.
Heather, can you talk just a little bit about the con of decentivizing maintenance? Can you just talk a little bit, vocalize that a little bit? I want to make sure I kind of understand that.
Mayor, did you want to add something? I just could
It's,
see you.
what happens is if you do the overlay, all of a sudden you've effectively devalued the property because it can only be used in a certain use. And the incentive then becomes for the landlord, not why should he maintain it? Okay, if it's not going to increase in value or even stay at the same value, why should he maintain it? Especially if you have some kind of stoppature on the ability to increase rents. Okay, so if you go both of those, effectively you've devalued the property and there's no incentive for the landlord to maintain it.
It just, toss that in. Second part I get, there was rent stabilization, then there is that potential. But if we do it as a mobile home park overlay, there is not an incentive to maintain it as a mobile home park?
No, it's not this. It will, with an overlay, it will be a mobile home park, period. It can't be moved into anything else.
Well, let me go that different direction. If I decided to redevelop, my thought is I'm going to be taking all of the existing structure, asphalt, everything out.
You can't redevelop it except as another mobile home park.
I understand, but
Yeah.
back to, if we put it on there, there's not an incentive to maintain it.
Right.
If I'm going to go to sale and to redevelop it, change the use,
Mhm. You
my
can't-
my
yeah.
sense is I'm not going to maintain it because I'm going to rip it out.
Yeah, well,
I'm
you
gonna-
can't redevelop it in any other way. In other words, it doesn't,
No.
you block the
So
value.
we go from, we don't have a mobile, an overlay to we do have an
Right.
overlay. If we stay where we're at
Well, we don't have an overlay.
and we move to having an overlay, you
Right.
said that there's a disincentive potentially
To
to
maintain it.
maintain it.
Mhm.
But if I stay here without an overlay.
Right.
And I can sell the property for single family housing.
Mhm.
I don't think I would be, if I had that in my 5-year horizon or 10-year horizon, I would stop maintenance because the value is the dirt. It's not the structures.
Not necessarily.
That's where I'm struggling.
Yeah.
Not struggling, but just my
Not
question was.
necessarily. If you have a mobile home park and it will continue to rise in value as long as you're maintaining it and you have the ability to do increases in rent, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of a sudden, if you say you can't do anything other than be a mobile home park, you can still increase the rent, but you've effectively locked in the long-term value of the property because it can be only that. And so there's no upside in the value of the property, so you don't really have any incentive to maintain what you have. In other words, you fix the value, period. It's done, so why maintain it?
Okay.
Are we aware of some examples of where they've sort of not invested in maintenance and so forth?
I don't have any specific examples. All I know is of what I've read
Okay.
like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And just.
From an economic standpoint, it makes sense.
Yeah, and for my colleagues, I actually did go down and meet with County Assessor Phil Cook and talk through this and look at how these things are valued. There's two ways of valuing property. One is comparable sales. One is a commercial property, is what is the rent obtained. Currently, it's more valuable as a commercial property as rental than it is as the raw dirt. That can flip.
Can flip.
But at least short term, when they did the two assessments, it doesn't assess amount very high for comparable sales, i.e. selling it for redevelopment versus that. So, okay, I hear what you're saying. I just, from that,
You have to think it through.
yeah, you have to think it through and what's the value to the future owner? Right now, it's to keep it the way it is. However, that can flip, and that's why we're having the conversation.
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
Go-
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, and I had questions about this too, because that's certainly something, we don't want to do something that then just incentivizes the owners to let these places fall apart. Is it something that we could control through code? You know, that Heather's department could institute there's changes in the code, and I mean, we don't have a code enforcement officer, that's a different conversation, but you know, that we could then keep the owners from letting it fall into disrepair. To a certain degree, I mean,
Pretty
really a
hard
certain-
to do that, but, I mean, there is a possibility, I suppose, but pretty hard. Cause it's effectively pretty big economic forces rather than whether or not you cut the grass that we're talking about. So,
It's
yeah.
private property, we're limited, I know what we can do, but if we're talking roads specifically, you know, they still have to be safe, even private roads. I'm just wondering if there are avenues that we would have to curb that thought, that, you know, of an owner of, well, you're gonna keep me from doing anything with it, I'm not gonna spend any money on it, you know? So,
yeah, it's,
cause
I
I'll
don't-
be
I
honest,
really don't think so.
yeah, I've been paying attention, and I'm pretty sure the rent stabilization bill is gonna pass, so I think we need to chalk that one up to, it's gonna happen. Yeah, the way it was presented, it looks pretty solid, so, I would certainly give it a 51%. You know, more than half of a chance it's passed, so I would almost say we need to plan for that to be the future going down, and make sure whatever we decide, that we accept that that's gonna be part of the landscape of what we're doing. So we don't wanna necessarily do anything that's gonna hurt it, but, and then my other question, moratorium use, they have time limits, but they can be extended. What's our max on that?
So as long as you adopt a work plan, you can extend a moratorium for 12 months.
Okay,
And then you can continue as long as you're showing progress on that work plan. So you can start with 12-month increment. And if you adopt another work plan, you can, and you've shown progress, and you can continue that moratorium for an additional.
is that a
and
work
there's no-
plan on you and your staff?
Correct.
So from your standpoint, would that be something that would be better, or that we hold in our back pocket, kind of have ready to go, and if it looks like one's gonna sell, then we roll out a moratorium versus just putting one in place now and have to worry about extending for a potential future maybe sale?
I believe that that's the best approach because we currently don't know of any mobile home parks that are under threat of being redeveloped. We get a little bit of an indicator by people coming in asking for a pre-meeting, or we would get a zoning verification letter, for example. So we have some indicators that something is actually brewing. And because of the legislation that's in place that gives the opportunity for the residents to purchase, there's protections within there that would prevent a rapid redevelopment of a park. And so we could respond with the adoption of a moratorium, which would prevent that land use permit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking what still lets us act, but doesn't put a burden on your staff to work towards a maybe, you know, so if we have it and we have it ready to go, and we only roll it out and pull the trigger if we need to, that's probably from a staffing standpoint, I think, a better solution, at least just in that particular piece of this.
So Mayor, what would you and Heather recommend to us? I mean, I think, you know,
What I
my
would-
colleagues and, I'm sorry, my colleagues and I, we've had conversations about this. I think we appreciate the role that the manufactured homes play in our community. I think there's an interest in doing what we can to protect them from development, but we don't want to run into unintended consequences that would sort of defeat that purpose. So I'd love to hear kind of what you would recommend that we do now, kind of knowing that that's our interest.
Frankly, the way you're going to secure these people's residence the most is have them purchase the mobile home park themselves. There are state incentives to do that. There are methodologies to do that, where there's actually some funding available for you guys to purchase it yourself. And that way you own your own home. That's the safest place to be is owning your own home. And so that's the methodology I would recommend. Pam, then you add.
Well,
if that is something that they want to explore, I don't know if that is something that has been thought about, but I would assume that we would need to at least apply a moratorium while that option is looked at, you
But
know?
right now, we have no indication that anything like anything's getting sold. And as Heather said, you have indications when things like this are moving. And as Ed knows, we can slap a moratorium on something really fast if we have to. But moratoriums are dangerous because they really, the development community at a large, not just for mobile homes, but everybody goes, whoa. Because that's like the worst thing that you can do when you're, for developers, is you're marching around and all of a sudden the city comes in and said, you're done. And it's not something we ever do lightly, I think. But the best thing is for them to own their own homes. That's the most secure thing. Go ahead.
Pardon my ignorance for zoning, ordinances and, so hypothetically, let's say we do an overlay and pass that, and then 20 years down the road, we want to roll that back. That just requires a vote, the same
So
process,
it would
right?
be the same process in reverse.
Okay, so it's not
It's not a
locked in
perfect.
forever.
Correct.
I mean, at this council's discretion.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Stern, I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
I
And
skipped you.
follow up on the mayor's remark. Moratorium is considered very anti-business. It introduces unpredictability. It disrupts financial chains of investment. There's cost associated with being in abeyance. It's seen as an anti-business signal, not just real estate wise, but it subjects the city to the thought they're not planning very well. Is their house in order? Are there going to be other disruptions?
But beyond that, couldn't it sort of cause a current owner and say, oh geez, if they're thinking of doing that, I better move forward with this plan I didn't really have, but I want to get ahead of the curve, right? Isn't there a danger of that too?
Well, there's a danger of the moon not coming up. I mean,
Well-
there's all dangers everywhere, you know, but the reality of it is the best thing that we can do for residents that want to stay in their homes is to help them figure out how to buy them and work with the state programs in order to make that available to them. That's where you're going to be the most secure.
Well, how about, Mayor, if we suggest that you and Heather or anybody else on staff meet with these folks and talk about that option? Is that realistic or not for you all? That might, would that be an appropriate next step?
First of all, I have to do some homework because I know that there are state grants that help reduce the payments or reduce the cost of a purchase like this. And I know they're out there, but I don't know the particulars. So it's Mr. Eckert, then Mr. Stern again.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so one of the things that was really good about that webinar that some of us attended was that the residentially owned community Northwest person was there and talked pretty detailed, pretty well about how that process works. But we need to recognize too that we have three different communities we're talking about here. And the ability to buy, I don't think is the same in all three. I mean, I think there's a pretty significant difference in one than the other two. But they are there ready, willing and able, waiting to help communities do this. That is what they do. So the 70-day, that's in place to help that group swoop in and help a community that wants to set up and buy. They help them from organizing to funding through closing and all that. So there is a thing there in place that if I got indications that there was going to be a sale made, we would have time we could do a moratorium, this group could help. So there are things there we could do in a short term. And there were some things about it that were really positive, I thought, in that not just that the residents own the land, but they shared, I think you had attached the study that it now converts what's seen as a vehicle and not real property to real property. So now instead of deflating in value every year, like a car, it now starts to gain value like a home. So there's some real value, and folks can get out of it. If you live there and you buy into the property and then later you say, I want to leave, you get out, like, you're not locked in. So there's definitely some stuff to look into there. I think it's really interesting. I think for us and direction, I would like to say we look at the overlay because that seems to be the less, it's not as restrictive as rezoning. It's not as much work on staff to do, and it's something we can reverse. And it gives what protections we can give, it seems, without the nuclear option of a moratorium, which we always have in our back pocket. I think as far as direction to staff, that's my vote. I'd like to see a pursuit of the overlay, and then we see where that takes us.
Okay, we have Mr. Stern and then we have Ms. Lavelle.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't mean to comment about moratoriums. That was just a quick follow-up to the mayor's remarks. Back to mobile manufactured homes. I'd like to take a different lens and get your feedback. So far, we're talking about protecting and ensuring our existing housing stock. I would like to look at a proactive method. What can we do to encourage the development of not just single in a neighborhood that we already allow for, but actually encourage this as a low to middle income housing solution, one of many in our bag. And then I look at it as both private sector, which I'd like you to comment on, but I also, before I give up the mic, want to comment on public, juxtaposing it with the Nordic cottages. What's to prevent a county or city from using existing land base and putting in infrastructure such that to allow for a mobile home community that the city or county might own?
Would you like me to respond to that now?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think it's a great question. So it's how do we incentivize new mobile home parks? And I think there are tools that we could utilize. So we could, right now, as we said, we had to have a minimum of 5 acres. We could look at reducing the minimum requirement. We could look at, if you do pursue this type of housing, many communities have looked at tiny homes, for example, as another alternative of smaller, more affordable housing. We could provide a bonus density if you were to provide that type of housing versus your traditional single family. And another option we could look at to incentivize or mandate, if so be, is if someone does redevelop, they have to provide a certain amount of the new units as affordable or as mobile. We could require some of that to be baked into a redevelopment proposal. So we have many tools we could draw from.
The problem is from an economic standpoint, if you have 5 acres in the city of Poulsbo, you are not putting mobile homes on it. You're not.
I was saying city or county.
Yeah. Well, the county, when the county, you're not supposed to put anything like that because it's the county. You're not supposed to develop in the county. You're not supposed to develop densely. So Britt, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the question point I was gonna make is different, but just following up on what Ed said, I'm not sure that my goal would be to encourage new development of manufactured home parks. I understand the affordability component and what that offers, but like you just said, from a business and real estate standpoint and land use standpoint, I struggle to see it as the highest and best when we're being kind of constantly told we need more density. And we're simply not going to be able to get there if that's the way that the land is used within our city limits. And, the last thing most of us want here is the state coming in and telling us, requiring, our density to increase. So that's my feelings on that one part. But as I've been listening, the idea of the overlay, Mayor, you said that inherently the value becomes fixed if, stagnant, if not going down. I'm really just thinking this out. It's kind of a question. Would a potentially stagnant or lower value actually make it more possible for the residents to purchase the property? I know that saying that openly is maybe risky, but it's a thought process here.
My brain is too fried to think through these kind of questions. This is heavy duty economics and I have to think it through. I have to think it through.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I would lean towards an overlay also. And I agree, Mayor, I think we're at the time of night to we start doing spreadsheets and analysis, I think I would lean towards that. I would also offer up to any of the communities if to lean in to help them with doing a pro forma. 70 days sounds like a lot of time, but it's zero time when you're trying to put together a purchase and sales agreement, even on a house. It's hard.
That's just, I think, just the right of first refusal. So there's-
Understand, we
yeah.
still gotta go through, hey, what are the numbers? So I'd be more than willing to sit down. I've been involved in commercial transactions, both sale and purchase of dirt and buildings. And if, one of the communities wanted some help and we start trying to explore what do the numbers look like and come back as a homework assignment, I'm willing to help, if so be it.
Thank you, Doug. Doug, go ahead.
Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I also support the overlay, looking at just projections, demographics, I think, and the fact that we can roll it back if things change. And I think the risk is acceptable, and I think it's, I love looking at other options for affordable housing in the future, but I think nothing beats protecting the affordable housing we have today.
Do you have enough direction from council, Mayor and Heather?
I want to do a little more homework.
Okay.
I'll be real honest. I don't know as much as I should about this.
Okay.
I just don't. So let me.
Thank you, folks, for coming in. Yeah, thank you very much.
And I just wanted to share with everybody, one other thing that I learned in that webinar, talking about good problems to have. The city of Lakewood, a bunch of their manufactured home parks are in the aircraft safety zone at the end of the runways of Joint Base Lewis McChord. So they've got development issues with properties that, because they were built before the runways were, now can't be redeveloped without meeting aircraft safety zone rules, and have that whole issue to deal with along with what we're talking about. So we should be happy we only have this issue to discuss.
Mayor, would you mind if I just made a quick comment after hearing this discussion? Thank you. Just on the topic of equity, I think that this idea of people being able to buy their home is an incredibly powerful way to build equity for younger people. But the calls that I'm getting are for older folks with fixed incomes that are not in a position to buy a home, and it's not a time in their lives to build equity. So I just want to introduce the idea of age in this conversation as well. Equity is a wonderful tool for many, but not for all. Thank you.
Council, if I could say sorry, may I please say one more thing? Just to set expectation for timing, absent of any looming threat, I would propose that we take this through the comp plan adoption process. When we choose our preferred alternative, we can get that policy direction, and we're looking to adopt those comp plans in June, and we could be taking through an amendment to the overlay at that time as well.
And,
Okay.
and if
All
there
right,
is a
perfect.
looming threat, I want to reassure these people here that we will handle the looming threat. We do have tools to eliminate the looming threat, okay? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, where the heck were we? Oyster Plant Park, please. Oyster Plant Park lease extension. And then right after that is the Parks and Rec software, and these are both Jeff. Yeah, keep going.
Okay, we're gonna keep going, get a stretch break in, get some decaf coffee. Okay, so good evening again. We are here to talk about the Oyster Plant Park lease extension with Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Our lease was a 25-year lease. We reached out to them last year to restart the renewal process. We are one of the rare agencies in the entire state that caught this before it expired, so I would like to give a big thumbs up on that one. Watch this brevity.
We're listening to you. We're just not paying attention.
So instead of renewing another 25-year lease, we are extending it to a 50-year lease. What this means is that we'll all be well retired when it comes back. And our legal went through this. Their board is meeting this week. It might be tonight. And so what's in front of you is a motion to move this item to the consent agenda. And then that will allow the mayor to authorize this, sign that lease.
Good.
Great.
Okay, that was good. Now we have Parks and Rec software.
Parks and Rec software, continuing the brevity. Uh, Council approved funding for our parks coordinator, but because it was a meeting with our finance director and our city administrator, when we proposed the funding, we built in a budget of 7,000 for software and supplies, so the position can actually do their job and it's self-contained. That 7,000 didn't move over during the budget process. It was so what we're coming here with is, oops, for whatever reason it didn't move over. We do need the software to conduct our playground assessments. It's going to save a lot of staff time, and we need software to work on our volunteer programs once we get that passed through IT, and we need supplies for this position. So what's in front of you is a budget amendment that takes that 7,000 that was part of the original proposal that just didn't transfer through with the position, and puts it back in the budget for that position. It is 7,000, it's recurring, and it's tied to the parks coordinator. Excuse me.
Mayor,
Let the record show this was brief.
Council, this is a code requirement that the transactions and expenditures that were completed from the previous year from our planning commission are presented at a council meeting in February. And I have a brief presentation. This was included in your packet, but this is just an opportunity for us to acknowledge the hard work of our commission and our council, because you touched all of these items as well. And I think what's most notable about what was accomplished in this last year is the amount of ordinances that made it through our process. And as Councilmember Eckert said, Poulsbo is doing things right, and we should be an example. And I think last year is an excellent example of that. We made some missing middle housing improvements. We've increased our residential housing capacity in all of our commercial zones through increased height, opening up flex space at the end of the year, and the improvements we've made along Viking and Alhava. It's great work by our commission, and I'm just constantly impressed by the work, the quality work, and the hard decisions that this council is willing to make and our commissioners. And in addition, our commission held 2 open houses. That was a new platform for our commission. That was in regards to our Viking update and our critical areas open house as well. In terms of project reviews, we actually had an uptick in project reviews last year. We had 3 residential projects in total that were approved utilizing either subdivision or PRD, which is planned residential development, and our first project that adopted unit lot. So we approved through the land use process a total of 189 units. Of course, they didn't all get built, and our planner will be providing those stats for you in just a moment. Additionally, the fire station was approved, and as I said, we had 2 open houses. And in terms of expenses, our expenses are pretty low. The majority of our expenses are from advertising, because these are council initiated amendments. No one's applying for them except ourselves. So that was the advertising cost to make sure that our citizens are informed about these these code amendments. And then we just had a small mailing cost to one of our commissioners. So that concludes the transaction and expenditure report. Thank you, council.
You are so inexpensive. Thank you. Anything, comments? Okay. All right, snapshot on full statistics of single and multifamily permits approved in 2024. Hey.
Hello. If I can get it to. Oh. This is the PDF. My pretty pictures. Oh. Let's see. I was trying to get the multi-fan.
Heather, will you introduce your colleague to us?
Oh. I can choose
Is that part of the plan?
So,
Oh,
good evening.
This is Ashley.
Yes, good evening, Council
Okay,
Mayor.
thank you.
I know you guys don't see me very often, but I'm Ashley Weller. I'm the Assistant Planner in the Planning Department. And so tonight I have just a snapshot of presenting, okay, showing up. A snapshot of the different building permits that we saw in Poulsbo this year, or excuse me, 2024. So, sorry, I'm losing my voice. In 2024, Poulsbo has approved 2 new multifamily building permits. So College Marketplace Building A, and I believe they had A, B, C, D. And A is the last one. And Nordic Cottages totaling 32 units. And so this is the snapshot. And then the second page is like the statistics, if you want to look at those. So all College Marketplace apartments have patios or balconies. College Marketplace also has a pet relief area. This is the name, CMP is the name of the apartment complex. And then 62% of the units built for the multifamily are 1 bed, 1 bath. And then 38% of the units are 2 bed, 2 bath. So a lot of 1 bed, 1 baths in 2024. And 100% of units had in-unit washer and dryers, as well as air conditioning, which is kind of exciting.
Nice apartments.
Yeah, and then, see, I don't know if you guys want to see the boring statistics, characteristics, but, and then Marketplace had a clubhouse. So let's go to single family. So in 2024, Planning and Building Department received 63 new single family home permits. So 73% of new homes are between 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. So we're seeing bigger homes. 2% of the homes were less than 2,000 square feet. And 25% of the homes were over 3,000 square feet.
My God.
They're big. We got some big ones.
It's
Um,
crazy.
And in 2024, only 5% were 1 stories and 95 were 2 stories and 0 3 stories this year. 79% of them were 2-car garages. 19 had 3-car garages. 98% of the homes were built in our subdivisions. I think we only had 2 or 3 like single family homes that were not in a subdivision. I think they were on Haugen, Haugen short plot. And then 92% of homes have a bonus loft. So these are like, again, the bigger homes. It's kind of like a second living room upstairs. It's very common, like a lot of the homes have them. And then 75% of homes had 4 or more bedrooms. So again, big homes. And then 24% of homes had multi-generational plans. So these are plans with a downstairs that can be modified, or like when you're building with like Tri-Point or JK Monarch, you can kind of adjust them to where they have like a full bath and like another master bedroom downstairs. So family can live with you.
Now, before you're shocked, I mean, the Tri-Point houses that are around my place, they're huge families, 4 and 5 kids. There's kids everywhere. And I mean, you can hear them. You can see them running around in the street. They're chasing each other. They're everywhere.
The school
Kids.
district must be having a hallelujah breakdown.
Well, it's just, and that's one of the reasons why we put the safety cameras up on Knoll, is because all of these kids are walking to school and they're everywhere. So it's pretty amazing. Actually, it's pretty cool, to tell you the truth.
It is kind of interesting too. I mean, I was a little disturbed when I first read some of these statistics, I'll be honest with you. But I do see now, okay, so 25% of the homes were more than 3,000 square feet. We also see 24% of homes had multi-generational plans. So,
Mhm.
okay, that sort of makes some sense.
Yeah.
right? But still, geez, the size of some of these places.
Yeah, there were quite a few that were like 39.
I was mistaken. Did you capture ADU permits?
I did not. Last year, I think I only had 1. I'm pretty sure it was 1, because that was our new, after we had changed the ADUs to where it's just a building permit. I believe I only had 1 so far.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last stat is 25% of homes had 3 bedrooms. So
So I'd like to turn to density for a moment. And my question really isn't about manufactured home, but it seems like if there was lots available, a lot of those manufactured homes are like 0 lot line virtually to each other. I don't know if in a stacking situation like that, it would qualify for density versus single family, but past that, we're looking at Highway 305 and a few other areas for transportation oriented development. We're moving to density. It's not like Seattle or Linwood, but we'll do our version. I'm wondering what we need to do or what procedures we can take proactively in advance for height variance. The only way the city of Poulsbo can print money is going up in the air to incent development. And I'm wondering, past our existing regulations in front of getting the requests, we do want to go up high on Highway 305, I would think, or at least look at it, and I want to be proactive about it.
I can also speak to,
To how high?
So 65 feet is the max, but it's not for all properties within 305 corridor. There are opportunities for us to explore, opening up some more of that area. But I wanted to also share with the council, there is a bill that's going through the legislature right now to increase height an additional 20 feet for modular, which would be a
Yeah.
mandate from the state. So there may be more opportunity that could be mandated in the near future as well.
Are we concerned with the fire department keeping track with us?
They-
They've already ordered in fact, the ladder truck should be here in about 3 more months. So they've already ordered the truck. We told them almost a year ago that this is what was gonna happen, so.
but yeah, that's the end. Yeah. Have a good evening.
So council, this is the second year we've provided this report to you. I just wanted to share that Ashley provided last year's graphics and report. We do this so you all are informed about what's being built in our community. It could be used for future policy decisions. And I also want to give Ashley credit because she's reviewed every single one of these building permits. So thank you. Thank you, Ashley.
I request next year, could we get a density metric, anyone you choose? Like, so, like units per square foot or something, just so we have an idea of how dense is the single family
Yeah.
versus the multi. So
Definitely.
we can just get an idea of like, what is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Otherwise, amazing, great, excellent job.
In my mind, the most interesting one coming forward though is that unit lot subdivision up in Ojeda, which is what I call condo light, which is, it's basically 0 lot line, common wall townhomes. So, yeah. Yeah. Okay, now we're on to continued questions and concerns of the council. Whoops.
So
Oh,
I was
coffee
thinking,
oasis, I'm sorry, I scratched it off before. Sorry, Kim. You're scratched off, Kim.
I don't understand. This is short and sweet. We've been working with Coffee Oasis since 2012 to give them rental use of city property where they're operating a coffee house. They pay us a nominal rent every month. I believe the amount is currently $832. Coming to council tonight to consider an extension of that original 2012 agreement to allow them to operate at the current coffee house to the end of 2025.
Only question I would have is why just another 10 months? Is there something happening next year with?
We've got a couple things happening in that area. We have a large grant for the 8th Avenue reconstruction, which could go right.
Couple years ago. No,
We
right?
could go through that area. There's also, I think that's all I really want to say at this point, but
Okay.
there is reasons I think it's good to just keep the rent short.
I just, I see them as one of the good service providers if,
Hear you.
and I know you know this, but we don't want that place sitting empty
Absolutely.
because they have to find another place. So anything we can do to keep them there while the building's still upright.
Have we raised the rent in the last 12 years? We
Oh,
have?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, minimally, but yes.
Okay.
It's not been very much.
It's been, again, like,
And we're not necessarily considering that now because we think it's not going to be really a long-term situation. Is
We've
that
been
right?
on a month-to-month rent, at least year-to-year rent for those guys for
Since
what?
2012.
Since 2012. Okay,
Oh.
there's nothing new here. So,
Well,
It's year to year, month to month, is what it is.
Yeah, we've done this.
okay, how about, I'm fine going another year, but if things change and we think, I just think we need, citizens expect us to be good stewards of the money. I understand they do good work, but I think some sort of a rental increase, if we go beyond a year, might be in order.
I heard that, I've heard you. I'm good. Okay. All right, is that it?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Come back next time as a consent agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're on to continued questions, and concerns of the council, other than the fact that it's 20 minutes of 9. Okay? Okay, go ahead.
I just want to appreciate and acknowledge all of the hard work that those who have served on the, I'm going to say the P word, parking committee. And I appreciate all of the insight that's being offered and shared. I kind of digest a little delayed, if you haven't noticed that. So I do want to recognize and acknowledge that, there's been a lot of hard work and efforts and reaching out to the community. And unfortunately, folks haven't heard that. I know that we've repeated that. And I also would have to acknowledge and look at the fact that we are on the same page. We just want to get there and, in agreement in different ways. We are on the same page and in support of our business owners and community. So, I just wanted to share that in the moment and tough conversation and decisions that I do feel that we are moving together. We just need to agree on how we're going to move together.
Perfect. Mr. Stern.
So I just wanted to clarify for the record what we touched on, Rhiannon and my colleagues. So Pam and I are absent next week. Pam apparently is going to try to Zoom in. You need to understand the mayor's unable to travel distances right now with family obligations. So I am representing the city on a due diligence trip with the city of Spokane, Wazoo, that's directly relevant to the expansion of our college campus on the Allied Health Center. So I am tied up.
Yeah.
And I just want to make that clear, and that we knew that already last week and how we ended up here tonight. So I just want to re-clarify that.
We ended up here tonight out of sheer miracle, is what we did. Okay, we're headed in a good direction. Okay, maybe you can call in. I don't know if you get a chance, but we'll figure it out. Okay, any other questions and concerns of the council? Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know when it is that we're going to talk about it, but if we are taking a vote at the next meeting on the parking implementation option 3, we have to figure out how we're going to pay for enforcement prior to having revenue.
Yeah, I agree.
And the
I'll-
signs.
I will,
And the signage.
signage and enforcement, it's about probably a $250,000, well, $200,000. So we have to figure it out, and we will figure it out. We'll figure it out.
That's the attitude. But the cameras I looked, one of the things that indicates revenue can go to is towards complete streets. So potentially Front Street signage, which I believe we did cover under our complete streets project. So we could potentially use that funding for the signage. We'll have to get legal descriptions.
We're gonna have to have a debate about that, because I'm not about, when we give people the opportunity to invest in themselves, I'm not gonna take money away from the police department in order to buy signs for downtown parking. I'll just tell you that right now.
Well, I'm saying we need to have Emily look at what the ordinance, the RCW says exactly how,
Guys,
and go from there.
this is my job and Rob's job. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You've given us policy direction. That's the way we're gonna go. And now it's our job, nuts and bolts, to figure it out. And we will figure it out. Okay? All right, so future agenda items. Rhiannon, anything?
This opportunity for council to make any changes to the future agenda items.
Very quickly, you didn't say anything, so let's keep going. Okay, continued comments from citizens. If you have comments for the council, step to the podium. You have 3 minutes and state your name for the record. Hearing and seeing none. Mayor and council member comments. Any last words? Go ahead.
I just want to thank the people who do stick it out with us.
Yes,
Thank you, people.
Thank you very much. Okay,
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
is there a second? Okay, we have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you, council.